subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
And at the port of Logue Town, a long-nosed man carrying a huge package was chasing and shouting, "Luffy, did you forget? I'm still not on the ship. Let me on quickly." On the Sunny, Kaya covered her mouth in surprise. "It's Mr. Usopp." Luffy raised an eyebrow fiercely. How did they forget someone? He immediately reached out, extending his arm to grab Usopp by the collar, and pulled him back. Usopp, who was back on the ship, pinched Luffy's neck and cried with tears streaming down his face. "Luffy, UBD, did you intentionally forget about me because I didn't come with you before? You devil. Demon." No, it was an accident. It was all accidental." Luffy laughed heartily. Kaya tried to calm the situation. Stop choking him, Mr. Usopp. Luffy is going to die." Nami ignored the commotion and took out the sea chart of the Grand Line. "From now on, listen to my commands. Full left rudder, heading at 7 o'clock, full sail ahead." Amidst the laughter, noise, and commotion, the two ships sailed towards the Grand Line. 046 to dominate the Grand Line. There is still some distance to go from Logue Town to the entrance of the Grand Line. The closer we get to Reverse Mountain, the worse the weather becomes. It was sunny not long ago, but as we get closer, the climate gradually becomes strange, with dark clouds looming. The Sunny Go is leading the way, sailing ahead. In the field of vision, a wall of red earth stretches across the ocean, with no end in sight. So that's the Red Line? It's a sight that people in Kokoyashi Village can never see in their lifetime, Nami said with emotion. The ocean currents are not right. Nami leaned over the ship's rail, observing the increasingly rapid ocean currents, muttering, "At this rate, we will collide with the Red Line." What's wrong? Is the position on the sea chart incorrect? Driven by strong winds and ocean currents, the Sunny Go is like a speeding train that can't stop. Once it collides with the Red Line, don't worry, Nami. Believe in yourself, Luffy said softly as he walked to the bow of the ship, gazing at the distant redness. Although they can already see the Red Line, there is still a long way to go in reality. He took the opportunity to tally up their gains during this period. You have sailed in East Blue for 6 days, rewarded with 60 adventure coins. You have arrived at the new island, Logue Town, rewarded with 100 adventure coins. Recruited crew member Bartolomeo, a qualified ability user, rewarded with 300 adventure coins, including the previous stock of 1755. Adventure coins, 2,215. Easy, really easy. The goal of 2,200 venture coins was easily achieved. Equivalent to 11 hockey fruits, it can raise his Conqueror's Haki to the advanced stage of level 5. The only problem is that hockey fruits don't appear every day. Let's see what good things are available today. Today's luck is good. After many days, another hockey fruit appears, bought on the spot, minus 200 adventure coins. In addition, 6 style fruit boxed, a gift box that combines 6 fruits, stronger than 6 individual ones. Selling price, 1,000 adventure coins. Today's special offer, 500 adventure coins. Why does a box of 6 style fruits cost 1,000 when 6 individual ones cost 100 each? Is the strength in the price of the box? Luffy silently complained in his heart. Of course, this is just a small complaint. In reality, it is indeed better than buying them individually. After all, it's not guaranteed to get 6 fruits in a month. It's like buying time at a high price. The earlier you buy, the earlier you can enjoy. Mainly because it's on sale, buying 6 for 500 is still profit. Why isn't a hockey gift box? Do they think I don't have enough money? He complained again in his heart, but still bought it, deducting another 500 adventure coins. After a rough scan of the remaining goods, they were good, but until he achieves financial freedom with adventure coins, he doesn't have any extra money to spend. A flash of white light, a black fruit, and a box of 6 style fruits appeared in his hand. After eating the hockey fruit, his armament hockey level 1 immediately advanced to level 2. It was another day of reaping the rewards of hard training. Satisfied, Luffy thought to himself and turned to shout, "Nami, what's wrong?" She walked over. asking with confusion. Here, this is for you. Taking the gift box, Nami blinked happily. She felt happy receiving a gift from Luffy, no matter what it was. Perhaps it was a gift bought in Lowtown? What is this? She asked with a smile. Can I open it? Go ahead. The wooden gift box was exquisitely crafted. Nami opened it and saw 6 neatly arranged fruits in 2 rows. Her eyes widened, and she couldn't help but cover her mouth, almost screaming. There were so many of these precious fruits. Luffy, where did you get these? Can you really give me all of them? She asked incredulously. That question caught him off guard. Luffy thought for a moment and jokingly said, My grandpa gave them to me. He heard that my wife is too weak, so he gave me these. How about that? Are you happy? Very happy. Nami's smile was radiant, not because of the 6 fruits, but because of being called a wife. Her father-in-law was really great. She should have greeted him properly before. She didn't even care that her sister Nojiko and Miss Kaya were on the deck. Excitedly, she hugged Luffy and gave him a passionate kiss. Luffy, of course, wouldn't refuse the advances of a beautiful woman. Nojiko turned her head and happened to see this scene. She immediately smiled and said, You're really bold, Nami. Miss Nami. Kaya shyly covered her eyes, but she opened her fingers slightly and secretly watched. Half an hour later, the red line was within reach, and the inverted mountain was visible to the naked eye. Only when you get closer can you appreciate the towering and majestic red line. The red wall started from sea level and extended upwards, disappearing into the clouds, with no end in sight. Luffy stood at the bow of the ship, quietly feeling its ancient aura. The overwhelming sense of oppression that came rushing towards him was a sight he had never seen in his previous life. At the same time, it was also a wall of size, separating countless people from the 4 seas. Not only Luffy, but also the 3 women on the ship, and even the people on the Mariejois following behind the Sunny, were amazed by the scene before them. Look, that's the waterway. The seawater is flowing upstream. Suddenly, Nami noticed the reverse current at the foot of the inverted mountain. Under the powerful impact of the current, the seawater climbed up the mountain, all the way up toward an unknown end. I understand now, so this is how we go up. Nami exclaimed in surprise. When we reach the highest point, the sea currents from the 4 seas converge and then flow back down, leading to the direction of the Grand Line. It's truly a spectacle. Luffy smiled and shouted, The Grand Line is ahead. We're your dreams, everyone. The male crew members on the Mariejois heard his question. Zoro's gaze slightly hardened as he responded, To become the world's greatest swordsman. To become a brave warrior of the sea. For the All Blue, the Sea of Miracles. To follow Captain Luffy and witness the birth of the Pirate King. To repay the debt of saving my life. To participate in great adventures. Listening to the shouts of the men, the 3 women on the Sunny exchanged glances and smiled together. To map the world, to fly freely like birds, to leave the past behind and embrace the future. Driven by the current, the Sunny was the first to charge up the reverse waterway of the inverted mountain. Luffy raised his fist with a smile. To conquer the Grand Line, 047 Vivi who steals the forbidden fruit. Yahoo! The Sunny climbed up the mountain sea current, and Nami shouted excitedly. Luffy, on the other hand, remained calm. He immediately retracted the sails to prevent the ship from deviating from the sea current under the force of the wind and colliding with the mountains on both sides. At the same time, he shouted, Zoro, retract the sails, adjust the direction, aim for the mountain sea current, and don't collide with the red line. Understood. Usopp's voice responded. In the midst of the chaos, the Mary also narrowly entered the reverse mountain canal. It was only at this moment that everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Sanji lit a cigarette and said, I've heard that half of the ships that go from East Blue to the Grand Line end up buried at sea, probably because they collide with the red line. It's really terrifying. Do we have to eliminate half of the ships at the entrance? What kind of devil sea is the Grand Line? Usopp covered his head with both hands. Hee. If we had collided just now, the ship would have been shattered. Say something auspicious, rookie. Sorry, Captain Johnny. Haha, it's good that you know. appreciating the scenery along the way. Everyone gathered at the bow of the ship. The mountain sea current was almost at a 45-degree angle upwards. The sunny, Luffy observed the reverse mountain left and right. Is this really naturally formed? Of course not. It must be a man-made canal. The people in the past were truly great. Nami sighed. The scale of this project was unimaginable, and she wondered how many people had to sacrifice their lives to complete this feat with the 5 canals of Reverse Mountain. The 4 seas and the Grand Line could be connected. Luffy shook his head. He wasn't talking about the canals, but about this Reverse Mountain. The Grand Line and the Red Line intersect at these 2 points, one being Reverse Mountain and the other being the holy land of the world nobles, Mariejois, where the world government is located. This question obviously had no answer. Before long, the ships passed through the clouds. The 4 mountain sea currents from the east, south, west, and north finally converged at the peak and merged into a downstream sea current leading to the Grand Line. Luffy remembered that at the end of the downstream sea current, there was a giant whale, over 400 meters long, which looked like a mountain from a distance. It was unknown whether they were lucky or not, but the whale, Laboon, did not block the entrance. The Sunny and the Mary successfully entered the Grand Line. On both sides of the exit, there were 2 lighthouses. The crew docked the ship on the left bank, disembarked one after another, and below the lighthouse, they saw an old man. The old man had a hairstyle like a saffron flower, wearing a pair of round glasses, and dressed in colorful and cool clothes. He sat under a parasol, crossed his legs, and cast a sharp gaze. "Where are you from?" His expression was serious, exuding an aura of, "I am a strong one." Nami stepped forward and said, "We are from East Blue, the Straw Hat Pirates. My name is Crocus." The old man interrupted suddenly. Oh, Nami nodded subconsciously and asked, "Mr. Crocus, may I ask where this place is?" Upon hearing this, Crocus glared and said in a deep voice, before asking others, "Shouldn't you introduce yourselves first? Are pirates nowadays so impolite?" Nami's forehead formed a cross, and she clenched her fist. "We are from East Blue, the Straw Hat Pirates. I'm a navigator. Nami, this is Twin Capes, and I'm the lighthouse keeper here." Interrupted once again, Nami transformed into a shark's mouth. "Listen carefully to what others say, you old fart." Seemingly provoked by Nami's words, Crocus immediately put on a stern expression. "Do you want to fight?" Zoro immediately gripped his sword handle. Crocus remained silent for a while, and then said, "Please speak. Everyone, please speak without making such a scary expression." Everyone felt the urge to punch someone. "Ha ha, Crocus." Luffy laughed. "I am Monkey D. Luffy, I have heard of your name." Crocus finally shifted his gaze to Luffy, or more accurately, he saw the straw hat on his head. It brings back memories. His expression softened, revealing a hint of nostalgia. Memories? Well, your feeling is correct. This straw hat belongs to Roger. Luffy chuckled. Crocus was stunned. "Roger gave the hat to Shanks, and Shanks gave it to me. I also heard your name from Shanks. You were the ship doctor of the Pirate King, the one who saved his life at the end. Without you, Roger wouldn't have made it to the final island." The Straw Hat crew was shocked. Was this infuriating old man really a member of the Pirate King's crew? "Wait, Luffy," Zoro suddenly realized something. "Why do you still know people here in the Grand Line?" Such a comment. But it's too early. There's more to come. "Don't you understand what it means to be the king of backgrounds?" Luffy smiled and said, "Crocus, can you give us a log pose?" Upon hearing this, Crocus also smiled. "Captain Roger, after all these years, is the person you've been waiting for him?" Thinking in his heart, he stood up and walked towards the lighthouse. "Luffy, right? Come with me. I'm happy today. I'll treat you to a drink, and I'll give you what you want." Everyone looked at Luffy one after another, unable to help but sigh in their hearts. "It's great to have acquaintances," Luffy laughed and said, "Let's go." Huh. Suddenly, he made a soft sound and turned to look at the coast. A small boat approached the Sunny in a sneaky manner, and 2 figures agilely climbed onto the deck. "It seems luck is on our side, Mr. Nine." The person speaking in a low voice was a young and beautiful woman. She tied her long, aqua blue hair into a ponytail, and had the demeanor of a bad girl. "You're right, Miss Wednesday. We've been waiting for 3 days and haven't seen that big whale surface. Luckily, a group of pirates came. There must be plenty of food on this luxurious ship. If we don't take some back, the people at Whiskey Peak will starve to death." The person responding was a man dressed in green clothes and wearing a crown. The two glanced at each other and quickly sneaked into the cabin. The hungry duo immediately began searching for food. Mr. Nine went straight to the refrigerator. Miss Wednesday, on the other hand, discovered an exquisite box. The box was quietly placed on the sofa in the lounge. She immediately walked over and opened it, finding 2 fruits inside. They looked like small apples. Originally, there should have been 6 because the box had 6 slots. "The packaging is so exquisite. It must be delicious." Her stomach growled, and her mouth started salivating. She picked up the 2 fruits and stuffed them into her mouth. The taste was extremely sweet, the most exquisite fruit she had ever eaten. Suddenly, she widened her eyes, covered her throat, and a look of disbelief flashed in her eyes. "What's wrong, Miss Wednesday?" Mr. Nine was startled and came out of the kitchen to the lounge. Just as he came out, he was horrified to find a man wearing a straw hat standing at the doorway. "So you ate it? You actually ate the forbidden fruit?" Luffy looked at Princess Vivi and couldn't help but laugh mischievously. "This can't be settled with money." 048 showdown between bad women. Nami, who appeared shortly after, also discovered that her 2 Rokushiki fruits had been stolen and eaten. Her heart instantly turned cold. She let out a scream and quickly approached Vivi, grabbing her collar in anger. Spit it out, spit it out. That was a gift from Luffy to me." As she spoke, she shook Vivi back and forth. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Vivi, who was being shaken, was both digesting the power of the fruit and continuously apologizing in her mouth. "What's wrong, Nami?" Nico Robin returned to the Sunny Go and, looking at her sister's appearance, couldn't help but say, "Did a thief come in?" Nami threw herself into Nico Robin's arms. Originally, I wanted to save it for you, Nico Robin, but it was stolen." On one hand, it was a gift from Luffy, something she cherished. On the other hand, she had already mastered the Rokushiki with just 4 out of the 6 fruits, and planned to share the remaining 2 with her sister. But before she had the chance, someone else ate them. Just thinking about this made her very angry. Seeing more and more people returning, Mr. Nine became nervous. "Miss Wednesday, what are you still doing here? Get ready to fight." It's your bad luck to encounter us, pirates." He pulled out a baseball bat from behind and launched an attack towards Luffy. Luffy lacked interest in dodging or defending and watched as it was about to hit him. Protective barrier. A transparent barrier unfolded in front of Luffy, and Mr. Nine's head collided with it, causing himself to bleed and his nose to collapse. Bartolomeo, with his middle finger and index finger crossed, walked in with an angry expression. "Who do you think you are, daring to attack Lord Luffy? You're really asking for trouble." Barrier sandwich. As soon as he finished speaking, a square barrier appeared behind Mr. Nine. The 2 barriers sandwiched Mr. Nine forcefully, and with a loud bang, he let out a scream, his whole body being squeezed in the center, almost flattening his face. "Mr. Nine." Vivi was shocked. "Are they ability users?" Zoro's face turned cold. "Luffy, how should we deal with them? Throw them into the sea as fish food." Johnny's expression was unfriendly. "Zoro, we're letting them off too easily. They dared to steal Nami's things. They should be tied to a rock and sunk to the bottom of the sea." Hearing these terrifying remarks, Vivi was scared and trembling. Luffy laughed. "Tie them up. These 2 are agents of the Baroque Works." "Baroque Works?" Zoro frowned. He seemed to have heard of this organization before and was even invited by them. "I'll do it." Nami took matters into her own hands and slowly approached Vivi. She also used her villainous tone and revealed a terrifying smile. "Don't even think about resisting, little girl. You ate 2 of them, so you should understand, right? Techniques like the Rokushiki are part of it." Vivi swallowed her saliva, looking like a little white rabbit being stared at by an eagle, her face filled with despair. Because she had eaten them, She understood that resistance was meaningless. I'll compensate you with money, she weakly said. Then she was tightly bound. The other Mr. Nine had already been knocked out, and after Bartolomeo deactivated his ability, he also tied him up like a dumpling. I'll leave them to you. I'm going to check on Kaya's condition. Luffy said a word and then turned and left. The crowd carried Mr. Nine out of the sunny, while Nami stayed behind. She sat on the sofa, assuming a bad woman's posture. Now, it's interrogation time, little girl. Tell me, what's your name? Who sent you here? What is this Baroque works that Luffy mentioned just now? On the other side, the merry-go. Johnny poured a bucket of cold water, waking up Mr. Nine. Bartolomeo grinned, revealing a row of sharp teeth. Tell me, obediently tell us your purpose. Don't think about making up stories. You two will be interrogated separately. Understand? Heavy? At the Twin Capes, next to the lighthouse, there was a small house. Seeing Luffy return, Kaya immediately asked with concern, "What happened, Mr. Luffy?" Two thieves came, but they had been subdued. No need to worry. Luffy turned to the pirate doctor and asked, "Crocus, how is her condition?" "It's a congenital genetic disease, if you want to treat it." Crocus shook his head, took out a piece of paper, wrote a few words, and handed it to Luffy, saying, "I don't have the necessary medicinal materials here. At most, I have some painkillers. You should go to Drum Island and find an old witch. I know her. Give her this note. She will help." Luffy took the note. Kaya nervously held her skirt and whispered, Will it be very troublesome?" "Miss Kaya, don't worry. This is the Pirate King's doctor. Since he said so, it will definitely be cured." Sanji comforted her. Crocus smiled and said, "Little girl, don't be nervous. Your illness is not incurable. You will be cured when you go to Drum Island. The premise is your captain chooses which route." "Which route?" Usopp looked puzzled. "It's different from the East Blue where you came from. The islands in the Grand Line have magnetic properties. To navigate here, you need to rely on log poses." While explaining, Crocus stood up and took out 2 log poses from the drawer. "In this sea area, past sailing experience is completely useless. The only thing you can trust is this." He placed the 2 log poses on the table. One is a permanent pose pointing to Whiskey Peak, and Drum Island is on this route. The other is a log pose that hasn't stored any magnetic force yet. You can decide which route to take yourself. The range of the lighthouse is large. Different areas record different routes, a total of 7. Straw Hat Luffy, I can only give you one of them. The others looked at Luffy one after another, waiting for the captain's decision. Luffy didn't hesitate. He picked up the permanent log pose and smiled. "There's no need to ask about this, thanks, Crocus. Are you interested in joining my crew?" "Ha! I'm already old. Adventures belong to you young people. And besides, there's something I can't rest assured about here." Crocus couldn't help but laugh. Did they really choose this route? Is it for the sake of curing this little girl? Or is it fate's arrangement? Oh, suddenly, a low and long sound rang out, vibrating the eardrums. What is this sound? Sanji's face changed slightly. Some kind of beast. Crocus also tensed up and without saying a word, rushed out. It's the cry of an island whale, a very big whale. Luffy said a word and followed him out. 049, another companion. Island whale Laboon joins. Wow, it's huge. As everyone followed Luffy out of the lighthouse cottage, the first thing they saw was an incredibly massive whale. Only the head of the whale emerged from the water, but even so, it was comparable to a small mountain. Sanji exclaimed in astonishment. "Why is its head covered in scars?" "It's called Laboon. It wants to smash the red line," Crocus said with a serious expression, slowly recounting a story from many years ago. After hearing the story, everyone sighed in admiration. Laboon was truly a whale with deep emotions. Smash the red line to find its former companions? But it's been so many years, that pirate crew, that was over 50 years ago, Usopp said with a sad expression, feeling empathy for the whale. Human lifespans are short, and over 50 years they would have long since died. I think so too. That's why every time it tries to collide with the red line, I have to inject it with a sedative, otherwise it would die sooner or later. Saying that, Crocus quickly ran over and leaped onto the whale's head. "It's the Rumbar pirates, right?" After pretending to think for a moment, Luffy walked to the shore and said to Laboon, "They're still alive." Roar! Laboon's roar suddenly stopped, and its huge eyes shifted slightly downward, looking at the tiny humans. "Do you know the Rumbar pirates?" Crocus, who was about to enter Laboon's body to administer the injection, turned around in astonishment. "My grandfather is Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp of the Marine Headquarters. I've seen some classified marine intelligence." Luffy nodded and once again revealed his background. Over 50 years ago, Laboon was still a young whale, small in size. It liked the Rumbar pirates, a group of musicians, so it followed them to the Grand Line. But the Grand Line was too dangerous, so the members of the Rumbar pirates made a promise with Laboon. They would meet again after circumnavigating the world. The result was naturally a tragedy. The captain of the Rumbar pirates fell seriously ill during the voyage. After he died, the Rumbar pirates fought against another group of pirates. In the end, they were wiped out. Everyone died. Only one person named Brook, who had eaten the Yomi Yomi no Mi fruit before his death, had his soul returned from the afterlife and lived a second life. And because his body had already decayed and turned into a skeleton, Brook became a living skeleton. He no longer had the limitations of lifespan and, in a sense, was a form of immortality. Now this skeleton-like person was wandering in the Florian Triangle like a ghost. Roar! After listening, Laboon let out another piercing roar. Luffy couldn't help but pause, his expression becoming subtle. "Are you saying you want to follow me and find him?" Something was off with this script. "Hey, Luffy, how can you understand what the whale is saying?" Usopp couldn't help but comment. "It's not that I understand. I just roughly understand the meaning behind its roars." Luffy shook his head. He hadn't awakened the ability to hear the voice of all things yet, but he could somehow sense what Laboon was trying to convey. If only Chopper were here, he could translate it accurately. Roar! Laboon roared again, leaving everyone dumbfounded. Luffy smiled. "Aren't you afraid I'll deceive you?" Upon hearing this, Laboon's expression immediately turned fierce. "Of course it's true. I'm not deceiving you." Teasing the giant whale for a moment, Luffy pondered for a moment before nodding and saying, "All right, I'll take you to find him. From today onwards, you're a member of the Straw Hat Pirates. If you agree, just nod your head." Laboon immediately started shaking its head, nodding back and forth. Crocus, who was on top of its head, was shocked and had to grab onto something to avoid being shaken off. The rest of the crew also showed expressions of disbelief. "Wait a minute, Luffy." Usopp danced around, describing the size of the whale. "How can we possibly sail with such a huge whale?" Usopp makes a good point, Luffy. "Have you thought about how much food it will need every day?" Sanji showed a look of despair. "I'm the one who cooks. Haha, it doesn't matter. It can find its own food. Regular sea kings are no match for it." Luffy laughed. "Of course, the most important thing is invite crew member Laboon, a qualified island whale. Reward 200 venture coins, even the system approves. Adventure coins for free, can't let them go to waste." Thinking of this, Luffy looked up at Laboon. "When we go ashore, you stay in the nearby waters. When we sail, you follow underwater. If we encounter shallow waters, you have to go around. If you get hungry, you have to find your own food. Do you understand?" Very troublesome. Laboon is over 400 meters long and over 100 meters tall. Not all seas have depths of several thousand or tens of thousands of meters. Shallow waters may only be 100 or 200 meters, but Laboon still nodded. Although it couldn't understand, the others could feel Laboon's firm determination. "I understand, then come along." Luffy grinned and turned to his companions. "Do any of you have any objections?" "Luffy, since you said it like that, there's nothing else we can do." Usopp helplessly rubbed his forehead. Kaya chuckled, remembering how Mr. Luffy had tirelessly brought her to the Grand Line for medical treatment. No one had any objections. Zoro's expression was serious. "You're the captain. Your decision doesn't need our input. As long as you've thought it through." Truly reliable captain. Luffy smiled slightly and immediately had Usopp go to the ship to get a paintbrush and paint. He personally drew a huge Straw Hat Pirates flag on Laboon's head, declaring it as a member of the Straw Hat crew. After everything was done, goodbye, Crocus, we're setting sail. Don't let Laboon die, Luffy. Why don't you come along? Haha, I'm already old. If you need a doctor, go to Drum Island. On the shore, Crocus waved continuously, watching as the two ships and the whale gradually drifted away. Monkey D, Luffy, just like Roger, won the D clan. 050 Princess Vivi's despair, the Sunny set sail from Cape Gemini, bidding farewell to Crocus, and slowly headed towards the first stop on the Grand Line, Whiskey Peak. Luffy walked into the activity room and immediately saw Nami interrogating Vivi. Facing the fierce Nami, Vivi weakly confessed everything, even revealing her true identity. So, you're a princess? The princess of Alabasta. Nami's expression gradually softened, and a symbol of belly appeared in her eyes. The devil fruit was eaten. There was no way to turn back time, so now they had to limit the damage. A princess was a very suitable target for extortion and compensation. When Vivi saw Luffy, she became even more afraid and quickly said, I will compensate. I was just too hungry and wanted to find something to eat. I didn't know it was something magical like a devil fruit. Nami immediately put on a friendly smile and said, So, Princess Vivi, how much money are you willing to compensate? 50,000 belly, what do you think? Vivi's voice became smaller and smaller, almost inaudible. 50,000. Nami grabbed Vivi's collar again, transforming into a shark's mouth, shaking her back and forth. Are you an idiot? If you could buy something like that for 50,000, I would want to buy a whole box. I'm sorry, that's all my savings. Vivi felt like crying, but had no tears. Her head was hurting from being shaken. I was the idiot who had a moment of hope for you just now. If you were rich, would you come here to steal food because you were hungry? Yes. Vivi's stomach cooperated and made a growling sound. The young girl's face turned red. Luffy watched the two girls arguing and couldn't help but laugh. He sat down next to Nami and asked, Which two techniques did you master? Moonwalk and finger pistol. Vivi bit her lip. She knew that the person in front of her was the real decision-maker, the captain. Please don't throw me into the sea to feed the fish. When I return to the kingdom, I will definitely compensate you enough. When you return to the kingdom, you're probably going to be taken out by Baroque works halfway. Luffy thought to himself and smiled. The Nefertari family of Alabasta, your country is currently in rebellion, in chaos. I'm afraid there won't be much money for compensation. Besides, the Six Powers fruit is something that money can't buy. How should we deal with her, Luffy? Nami sighed helplessly. Selling the princess as a slave should fetch a good price. Luffy smirked. That's a good idea. As expected of Luffy, Nami's eyes lit up, full of agreement. The two of them sang in harmony, scaring Vivi pale. I'm sorry. Please, not that. I'm willing to do anything. Please spare me. The fate of being sold as a slave was self-evident for a princess. Haha. Luffy couldn't help but laugh. It was amusing to scare the little girl. Nami glared at him and sighed. I was just teasing you. We're not those low-level pirates who do such boring things. Thank you. Vivi immediately breathed a sigh of relief. But you still have to compensate. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep at night. I understand. I will find a way. Vivi nodded vigorously, afraid that these two bad men and bad women would change their minds. Luffy shook his head and said, The black market price for a devil fruit is at least 100 million belly, and the Six Powers fruit is even rarer and has no side effects. The price is only high, not low. 100 million. Vivi's heart almost stopped beating. If it was the old Alabasta, it wouldn't be a problem to come up with that money. But now, as far as I know, Alabasta is now being targeted by Crocodile. It won't be long before you're not a princess anymore, but a princess of a fallen kingdom, with no money for compensation. Hearing this suddenly, Vivi trembled and stared at him in disbelief. How? How do you know? Who are you? I'm Monkey D. Luffy. My grandfather is Monkey D. Garp, Vice Admiral of the Naval Headquarters. The grandson of a Marine hero. Vivi's mouth dropped open, realizing that this identity might not be lower than that of princess. In fact, in a certain sense, it might even be higher. That's the core high-ranking figure of the three great powers of the Grand Line, a prominent figure in the Marines. Crocodile, Nami asked in confusion. Just like the hawk-eyed guy we met before, he is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, nicknamed Sand Crocodile, Luffy explained. Vivi stared at Luffy in a daze, her little head in complete chaos. After a while, she became excited. What does this mean? Do you know what Crocodile did in Alabasta? Did you find out from Marines? If that's the case, why didn't the Marines take action? Ah, I've discovered a blind spot. You're quite clever. Luffy chuckled lightly. Crocodile is a pirate who went to Alabasta and became a hero. If you say he turned over a new leaf and started a new life, even the 5 elders would probably laugh their heads off. He must be planning something, but considering that he's a Shichibukai, a lapdog of the government, they just can't be bothered. I know you're anxious, but don't forget that you're currently my prisoner, Princess Vivi. Luffy raised his hand and explained to her the rules of how this world operates. After listening, Vivi muttered in a daze. No wonder when I reported to the Marines, I never received any feedback. No one came to take a look. No one cared about what was happening in Alabasta. They know, or rather, they can guess some of the situations, but they can't intervene, and they don't want to. After all, the Marines are said to be one of the 3 great powers of the Grand Line, but to put it bluntly, they are still dogs of the world government. Without the government's approval, the Marines can't move against the Shichibukai. Even if Vivi were to go to Sengoku and present all the evidence of what Crocodile did, there would be no results. Vivi, who was struck by this, had tears welling up in her eyes, falling down one by one. She bit her lip tightly, drawing blood. Alabasta, the rebellious army deceived by Crocodile, the suffering people. Do they have no hope? She clenched her fist, but there was only deep helplessness. At the age of 14, she abandoned her princess status and infiltrated Baroque Works to investigate the mastermind behind the domestic turmoil. After 2 years, she finally learned a name. Behind everything, it was that Shichibukai, Sir Crocodile. She finally saw a glimmer of hope. As long as she could obtain solid evidence and submit it to the Marines, everything that Alabasta had suffered would pass, the suffering would end, and the country would welcome hope. However, now someone was telling her, "You're too naive." Huh? Luffy, don't bully her. Nami sighed deeply, looking at the pitiful Vivi and feeling empathy. Luffy spread his hands. I'm just helping you vent, that's all. Whose side are you on, Nami? She gave him a disdainful look. Nami embraced Vivi, patting her head and comforting her with a smile. Don't cry. Although he's been scaring you all this time, when he says something like this, he actually wants to help you. Huh? Vivi was stunned, her tearful eyes looking at Nami, then at Luffy. Luffy propped his cheek with one hand and chuckled. Don't make it sound like I'm a good-for-nothing. It's just that Crocodile is a bit too arrogant. It's unreasonable. I have to teach him a lesson. 051 10 times reward. Arrive at Whiskey Peak, huh? Why? Vivi stared blankly at Luffy, knowing that she had just stolen something precious from them. Could it be that he unexpectedly is a good person? Knowing that he is a Shichibukai, he still wants to help her and her country face such a powerful enemy. Sadness, touched, confused, puzzled. In an instant, Vivi experienced a variety of complex emotions, her mind in chaos. Suddenly, achoo, she sneezed. So cold, so cold. Nami also felt the chill. Her gaze turned to the window, her mouth wide open in astonishment. Outside the window, a thick fog had appeared at some point. The fog poured in from the doorway, and the temperature inside the cabin dropped rapidly, approaching freezing point. What's going on? Nami stood up suddenly, leaned against the window, and exclaimed in shock. It was daytime, just now the sun. The sun was gone, obscured by the dense fog. On the Mariejois, following behind the Sunny, Sanji and the others also noticed that something was wrong. Standing on the deck, it was difficult to see the Sunny, which was more than 10 meters away. Luffy, Sanji shouted. Usopp panicked and said, No, it's getting harder and harder to see. We might lose sight of it. The log pose is in Luffy's hands. Leave it to me, I won't lose it. At a critical moment, Bartolomeo stepped forward. He activated the barrier fruit ability and built a barrier bridge between the bows and sterns of the two ships. You guys keep an eye on that prisoner. I'll go check on Luffy's side. Zoro immediately jumped onto the barrier bridge. When he arrived on the deck, Luffy, Nami, and the others had already come out of the cabin. Vivi had also been untied, and she hurriedly said, "You've just arrived in the Grand Line. Maybe you don't know yet. The weather here is like a child. One moment it's noon, the next moment it could be pitch black." As soon as she finished speaking, clatter, 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 hail started falling from the sky, as if someone was standing in the sky, pouring a basin full of crushed ice over their heads. Ouch! Nami was hit and immediately cried out in pain. "Everyone, get into the cabin." Luffy handed the log pose to Nami. "Here, the only thing we can trust is this." Log pose. Vivi breathed a sigh of relief. "It's pointing to Whiskey Peak, the Drum Island." Vivi's body trembled. "Zoro, you came at the right time. Protect the ship. Who knows what will fall from the sky?" As the captain, Luffy quickly started to organize. Everyone suddenly became busy. Encountering the unpredictable weather changes of the Grand Line for the first time, everyone was inexperienced and inevitably a bit flustered. It started with dense fog, followed by hail, and the temperature dropped sharply as if in the depths of winter. After persisting for half an hour, they crossed through the dense fog and encountered volcanic ash falling from the sky. Not knowing where it came from, it was a dark mass, and if they didn't know better, they would have thought it was a dark cloud. After that, there was a heavy rain. The entire day, everyone on the ship was busy dealing with various unexpected situations. Fortunately, everyone's strength was not weak, and they finally made it through without any major incidents. The next day, the temperature on the sea remained below freezing. As the ship gradually approached its destination, it gradually warmed up. Luffy, I can see the island. Nami, wearing a thick coat, wore the log pose on her left wrist. She looked at the island gradually appearing in the distance and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Really, compared to the climate in East Blue, my sailing experience is completely useless. She couldn't help but sigh. The island that appeared in their field of vision was very peculiar. A river ran through the center, dividing the island into two parts. On both sides of the island were enormous cacti, or rather, mountains that looked similar to cacti. They extended from the foot of the mountain all the way to the coast, forming a small town inhabited by humans. You sailed in the Sea of Paradise for a day, rewarded with 100 adventure coins. You have arrived at the new island, Whiskey Peak, rewarded with 1,000 adventure coins. Luffy looked at the system prompt, secretly surprised. 10 times. It's actually 10 times that of East Blue. His brain quickly calculated. If he continued sailing at a normal speed, he would reach the end of the Sea of Paradise, the last island in the first half of the Grand Line, Sabaody Archipelago. It would take about 3 months, and just the adventure coin reward from sailing on the sea would be around 10,000. What if it's in a new world? Luffy couldn't help but think. On top of this, it increases by another 10 times. Financial freedom. From now on, he could buy whatever he wanted. What? Not satisfied with the daily loot. Just use adventure coins to refresh the shop. First, arm himself, max out his haki, and equip all the crew members with the basic 6 styles. Invincible. While thinking about this, 2 ships entered the river of Cactus Island one after another. People were everywhere on both sides, each with a smile full of enthusiasm, waving and greeting Luffy and the others. Hey pirates, welcome to Whiskey Peak. Brave sailors, welcome to the town belonging to pirates. Cheers and congratulations kept coming. On the merry-go, on the deck, Usopp looked around in confusion. What's going on? They're actually welcoming pirates. Mr. Nine, who had been left in the warehouse, sneered. He also heard the cheers and cursed the fools in his heart. On the sunny go, Vivi covered her mouth and immediately sold these people. This is the gathering place for bounty hunters, specifically hunting new pirate rookies who have just entered the Grand Line. She whispered. Her tone was quite embarrassing. After all, she was one of them. At the same time, this is also the base of the Baroque works. Nami's mouth curled up slightly, her tone becoming playful. I see. So that's how it is. Coming here without knowing anything, you'll definitely fall into their trap, right, Luffy? Luffy snapped out of his thoughts from the sudden increase in adventure coin rewards. Let's dock. The ships slowly docked at the port, and everyone disembarked one after another. Except for Mr. Nine, who had been completely forgotten. The people here warmly welcomed them and gave them enthusiastic applause. Clap, 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 congratulations. Having overcome numerous difficulties and arriving here, congratulations. Congratulations. You are all amazing, daring to challenge this treacherous sea. They were so popular that even Usopp, who knew they were bounty hunters, felt a bit elated. At this moment, a tall man with golden wavy hair walked out of the crowd. Welcome. Cough, cough. We all see me to the pirate town. I am a mayor here. He cleared his throat before speaking, with a serious speech impediment. His demeanor was more like that of a secluded nobleman trying to imitate the manners of high nobility, completely different from the ordinary people around him. But as soon as he finished speaking, Vivi stepped forward. Bye. Cough, cough. We all see me, Miss Wednesday. Is it you who led this group of brave sea heroes here? Well done. He smiled as usual. Upon hearing this, Luffy and the others burst into laughter, their laughter gradually becoming unrestrained. Vivi covered her face. No, please stop. It's too embarrassing. Mr. Calgo, they all know now. Luffy walked forward and patted Calgo on the shoulder. Bring out the delicious food quickly, Captain of the Guard. Welcome should be done properly. Captain of the Guard? Calgo was struck by lightning, frozen in place like a statue, completely dumbfounded. 052, it's interesting to watch women fight. Whiskey Mountain is a small town known for its brewing and music. In the cafeteria, the Straw Hat crew was warmly welcomed. Delicious food and fragrant drinks were continuously brought to the table. Everyone was not polite at all and immediately started eating. Just wait. This is the den of bounty hunters. It's not impossible for the food to be poisoned. Luffy, please let me taste it first. Bartolomeo stood up faithfully. Nico Robin was taken aback and praised, good vigilance, very reliable, Bartolomeo. Oh, you're too kind, Miss Nekamamushi. When I used to be in the underworld, I was poisoned many times by enemies. I have a lot of experience. Bartolomeo scratched his head awkwardly and quickly took a small portion from each plate and tasted it. Naturally, there was no poison, so everyone started eating. On the other side, Ikarim took Vivi to a corner and lowered his voice. Princess Vivi, what's going on? How do these pirates know my identity? I told them, Vivi said. Vivi briefly explained the cause and effect of the matter. Mr. Luffy and his crew will help us defeat Crocodile and save Alabasta. As soon as he heard this, Ikarim was dumbfounded. Princess Vivi was too easily deceived because of her young age. How could she believe what pirates said? Princess Vivi, do you know their background? Even if we assume that these pirates who have just entered the Grand Line can defeat that Shichibukai, Ikarim advised earnestly. Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, had a bounty of 81 million berries before becoming a Shichibukai. How much bounty can that guy with the straw hat have on his head? 71 million, Vivi answered seriously. Ikarim, wait, something's not right. Why would a pirate who has just entered the Grand Line have such a high bounty? Luffy's grandfather is Marine Vice Admiral Garp. His full name is Monkey D. Luffy. Vivi added again. Ikarim was instantly stunned. Monkey D. Luffy. So is this guy. No wonder he looked familiar before. The pirate who appeared a few days ago had a only alive requirement on his bounty poster. Because it was so rare, it was remembered at once. I see. So that's how it is. No wonder it's only alive. He's the descendant of a marine hero. It makes sense. Ikarim murmured. Mr. Ikarim, I believe in them. They really are. Vivi said. It's worthy of Princess Vivi to find such strong reinforcements. Ikarim's face changed instantly, and his speed was astonishing. As long as Mr. Luffy explains the situation of Alabasta to his grandfather, the Marines will definitely take action. Alabasta is saved. Outside the cafeteria, many bounty hunters were already on standby. Looks like the banquet inside is lively. Don't worry, Wait for Mr. 8's signal. When the signal sounds, we'll rush in and deal with those pirates. Were these rookie pirates really worth anything? They look like a bunch of idiots. Whoever has a bounty, go and see if there's a match. A group of people whispered to each other. Just then, a man and a woman walked up from behind. The man looked like an explosive-haired rock singer, wearing a pink scarf around his chest and walking with his hands in his coat pockets. Very arrogant. The woman had a tall figure with short golden hair. She held a parasol and wore a light yellow dress and white high heels. Her walking posture was very graceful with a swaying buttocks. Ah, you guys. The woman's laughter startled the bounty hunters. When they turned to look, Mr. 5, Miss Valentine, they're high-level spies. Why are you appearing here? They swallowed their saliva, their expressions unable to hide their fear. We're not looking for you. We're Mr. 8 and Mississippi Wednesday. Mr. 5, with an explosive hairstyle, asked coldly. The crowd pointed to the cafeteria ahead. They're dealing with prey inside. Inside the cafeteria, everyone else was eating happily. Nami, however, looked at the log pose in her hand with a puzzled expression and said, "Why isn't it moving? Doesn't the log pose point to the next island after storing enough magnetic force? There are no signs of that at all. Luffy, that's a permanent log pose. It doesn't refresh the magnetic force," Luffy answered while eating. Then how do we go to the next island? Nami exclaimed in surprise. Don't worry, someone will take us there. Luffy wiped his mouth and smiled. They're coming now. Boom! Suddenly, an explosion sounded. The cafeteria door was blasted open, and amidst the fire and smoke, a man walked in with a graceful stride. Mr. 8, come out and see me. Mr. 5 spoke in an indifferent tone. His gaze quickly swept across the cafeteria, barely stopping on the Straw Hat crew, and then he saw Ikarim and Vivi in the corner. I found you, Mississippi Wednesday. No, would it be better to address you as Princess Vivi? He grinned and stepped towards the two. Mr. 5, exposed. Ikarim was shocked and quickly said, Princess Vivi, you should leave with Luffy and the others. I'll hold him back. Honestly, he protected Vivi behind him and simultaneously spread his arms apart. In the next moment, gun barrels emerged from his curly hair. The sound of gunfire rang out continuously as bullets poured towards Mr. 5. Run! Ikarim shouted. Vivi's body stiffened, and she immediately took out a weapon from her sleeve, a peacock-shaped wooden staff. No, Ikarim, I have eaten the Rokushiki fruit. I can win. Boom! The ceiling suddenly exploded, and a figure descended from above. 5,000 kilograms. Mississippi Valentine descended from the sky. Her legs curled up, and she forcefully smashed Ikarim's head, directly crushing him to the ground, unable to move. Ikarim spat out a mouthful of blood, instantly losing consciousness. Ikarim, Vivi's pupils contracted. At the dining table, can't even have a quiet drink. Zoro put down his wine glass and was about to get up. You drink yours, I'll go. Nami giggled, stood up from beside Luffy. The log pose is on them, right, Luffy? Don't kill them. Leave them alive. I know. 053 easily defeated. Sanji, it's scary when women fight. Ikelim. Vivi squatted down, shaking Ikelim with a worried expression. Yaha! Mississippi Valentine's laughter echoed sharply in the cafeteria as she floated in the air with a small umbrella. I'm a person with a weight fruit, and that last attack was a whopping 5,000 kilograms. Even Mr. 8. No, Captain Ikelim of the Alabaster Royal Guard. He must be dead, right? Listening to this woman's boastful voice, the Straw Hat crew watched the scene while eating. A woman who flies in the air wearing a short skirt without fear of exposing herself. She's really bold. Usopp muttered in his heart, then turned his head and noticed that Sanji's eyes had turned into hearts. Ah, a perverted Kappa. Looking again at Luffy, who was chatting with Nami as if nothing was happening, he seemed immune to the commotion. Mississippi Valentine. Vivi raised her head in anger, and her fair neck flushed with anger. Vivi, Your Highness, run. Ikelim weakly spoke up. If you let them escape, the two of us will be killed. Princess Vivi. A cold male voice sounded. only to see the explosion-haired man who had been shot by Icolum earlier standing there as if nothing had happened. He skillfully picked his nose and flicked it towards Vivi. Please die, Booger Fantasia Cannon. Although his movements were very suave and skilled, in the eyes of the Straw Hat crew, he instantly went from being an assassin to a booger man. A tiny booger flew rapidly towards Vivi. Boom! Suddenly, a figure intercepted it. Nami raised her slender leg and kicked the booger away, but to her surprise, the booger exploded upon contact. For a moment, thick smoke filled the air. What? The booger man squinted his eyes. Screams came from the smoke. Ah, all my shoes are ruined. Nami, as if avoiding a plague, kicked her shoes aside. So disgusting, I touched a booger that exploded. These were my favorite pair. She was so angry she wanted to hit someone. Nami. Vivi was taken aback. The booger man's face turned grim, and he coldly asked, Woman, who are you? Before Nami could answer, he once again picked out a booger. Never mind. Who you are doesn't matter. If you get in the way, you can die together. Whoosh. The booger bomb was launched again. Nami, disregarding her disgust, forcefully stepped on her fair foot, and her figure instantly leaped into the air. Moonwalk. Without any leverage in the air, her stomping on the air made a muffled sound, and then she flew towards the booger man. Seeing this scene, the booger man's face went blank. Moving in the air blast. Without time to think, he took a deep breath, inhaling a large amount of air, and then forcefully exhaled. The air he exhaled was like an air cannonball, heading towards Nami. Nami continuously changed her trajectory in the air, evading the attacks time and time again. Boom, boom, boom. The air bombs that lost their target kept causing explosions, but they couldn't hit her at all. In the instant when those fair feet touched the ground again, Nami's figure suddenly disappeared. Shave. The booger man's pupils contracted. Disappeared? What's going on? What ability is this? Where did this woman come from? A bunch of doubts arose in the depths of my heart, and the next moment, a woman's voice sounded behind me. What kind of ability user are you? Can you explode just by exhaling? Will your body explode too? Impossible. The booger-nosed man showed an incredulous expression and quickly rolled forward, turning his head at the same time. In his field of vision, Nami's figure indeed appeared. An ability user with teleportation powers? His face turned ugly as he spoke. I am Mr. 5, the explosive man who ate the bomb fruit. Any part of my body can explode. Woman, you're also an ability user, right? I advise you not to meddle in other people's business with your abilities. Tempest kick. Nami swiftly kicked, and her strike hit Mr. 5 in midair. In an instant, a gush of blood spurted out, and Mr. 5 was sent flying by the strike, crashing into the wall of the cafeteria with a miserable scream. Boom! The strike passed through him, leaving a long gap in the wall. Mr. 5. In midair, Miss Valentine's eyes went blank. Everything happened too quickly. In just a few breaths, her partner was taken out with a single move. She gritted her teeth and looked at Nami. What the hell is going on with you, woman? He said it himself. Any part of his body can explode. Just don't touch him, and you'll be fine. Nami stood with one hand on her hip, looking at the other person with a sly smile. I'm sorry, assassin. Can you give us your record pointer? We don't have one, and we're having a headache because of it. It's not for this princess. Valentine suddenly felt a ridiculous anger. What a mess. They were going to attack the high-level agents of the Baroque works just for a mere record pointer. Moonwalk. Suddenly, Vivi leaped into the air, using the same technique to appear above Valentine. For Igaram's revenge. Vivi's eyes were filled with tears as she angrily attacked. Finger pistol. With a sound, a finger pierced into Valentine's back like a gunshot instantly. Her pupils dilated, and as the pain spread, she fell from midair. A miserable scream rang out. Sanji, who was still infatuated, shivered at the sight. Women fighting is really terrifying. Just then, Luffy raised his head slightly and looked at Miss Valentine, who appeared through the broken ceiling. You drew well, he praised. At the gap in the ceiling, a raccoon and a bald eagle with black feathers watched the battle intently. In the raccoon's hand, there was a portrait of Nami. The unlucky duo. Vivi finally noticed, and her expression changed. The raccoon calmly put away the portrait and jumped onto the bald eagle's back, quickly flying away. Wait, Cactus Island, near the sea. A giant turtle emitted a mysterious aura, and a woman holding a portrait looked at it quietly. Beside her were the combination of the bald eagle and the raccoon. Failed? I see, I understand. The woman revealed a charming smile, admiring the portrait of Nami. To defeat Mr. Five and Miss Valentine, your skills are really impressive. She casually threw away the portrait. The raccoon immediately jumped up to catch it. I'll report to the boss and handle the rest myself. Receiving the order, the bald eagle carried the raccoon and flew away again. 054 Elegant and mysterious atmosphere. Nico Robin appeared. The battle in the cafeteria has come to an end. The two assassins who rushed over were defeated by Nami and Vivi. They're now tied up and being guarded by Bartolomeo. Usopp is bandaging Ikarim's wounds. Your body is really tough, curly-haired old man. Cough. I used to be the captain of the Alabasta Royal Guard. These injuries won't kill me. Ikarim's face is slightly pale. Nami is fiddling with the recording pointer she snatched from Miss Valentine. Unlike the permanent pointer she wears, this new pointer is actually storing magnetism, and the magnetic needle inside the glass ball is slightly shaking. How long does it take to store the magnetism? The time varies depending on the island. Some only take a few hours, while others may take a year. Ikarim explains, here will probably be fully charged by 7 or 8 in the evening. Is that so? That's good. Nami nods. It's hard to imagine what would happen if it took a year. Luffy definitely doesn't have that patience. By the way, what were those two animals just now? She curiously asks Vivi. They are the unlucky duo. They are the punishment agents and messengers of the Baroque works. They will probably report the information here to the boss, and then new assassins will come. Joseph knocks his fist against his palm, suddenly realizing, so, Nami, they will bring your portrait back, and you'll be targeted too. Nami is not happy at all. Why didn't you say that earlier? If I had known, I would have knocked them down. Being targeted by a Shichibukai right after entering the Grand Line is really unlucky. She throws herself in a Nefertari Vivi's arms, seeking comfort with a sad expression. Her sister, Nefertari Vivi, can't help but smile and pat her head, comforting her. It's okay. We have Luffy, so everything will be fine. Luffy's face is full of teasing as he jokes. Crocodile's bounty was 81 million before he became a Shichibukai, but that was over 20 years ago. Now, without considering his Shichibukai title, his bounty would be close to 2 billion. Pausing for a moment, he adds, don't worry, he's not as powerful as the 3.5 billion bounty Hawkeye. You might be able to win, Nami. Upon hearing this, Nami angrily pinches Luffy's cheek. Why are you so happy about this? Scared? Not all. With Luffy by her side, she doesn't even know the meaning of fear. Having a reliable man by her side is what gives her confidence. 2 billion? The rest of the Straw Hat crew feels a sense of urgency. For Luffy, maybe he can fight, and they all believe that Luffy can win. But what about themselves? They can't keep hiding behind the captain all the time. They must find a way to become stronger. At this moment, Ikarim staggers to his feet, plops down, and kneels in front of Luffy. Ikarim, Vivi is shocked. Luffy-sama, I have already heard from Princess Vivi about your situation. I have an earnest request. Ikarim bows his head to the ground, showing his utmost respect. For Alabasta, for the 10 million citizens, for King Cobra, even if it means kneeling or sacrificing his life, he will not hesitate to do so. The Straw Hat crew members exchange glances and all look at Luffy. Luffy smiles and says, kneeling is worthless. Don't think I will give up on my claim. Your princess ate my food. No, if it's compensation, we will find a way to satisfy you. Ikarim doesn't lift his head and speaks solemnly. You are Vice Admiral Garp's grandson. I would like to ask you to contact the naval headquarters and explain to the higher-ups what has happened in Alabasta. Upon hearing this, Luffy raises an eyebrow and looks at Vivi. Vivi clenches her teeth and says, Luffy-san, I have seriously considered it. I can't let you all get involved in danger and risk your lives fighting Crocodile. I want to try again. Naive little princess. Luffy secretly rolls his eyes. He had made it clear before that it's pointless to find the Marines, but she still doesn't believe it. I suggest you find the five elders instead. The Shichibukai and the Marines are the two major institutions under the world government. Although the Shichibukai cooperate with the Marines, it's not uncommon for them to act on their own. Not to mention that the Marines want to take action against the Shichibukai without the government's orders. It's impossible. The military cannot have their own thoughts. If the Marines dare to act against the Shichibukai, the five elders will definitely hold them accountable afterwards. Even if they have sufficient reasons, it's a red line that cannot be crossed. Without orders, don't make decisions for the government on your own. Are you the boss? Or is it a problem of my boss? It's a matter of core interest for the world government, and there's no room for compromise. As for overthrowing a country as a Shichibukai, compared to this, that's a small issue. Similarly, if the Marines want to take action against a pirate crew at the level of the four emperors, they also need the government's orders. It's not like Sengoku can just decide on a whim to fight Whitebeard today and go after Kaido tomorrow. Can you contact the five elders? Ikarim looked up suddenly, filled with excitement. Although Alabasta is also a member of the World Government Alliance, even King Cobra himself only has the opportunity to meet the five elders during the World Summit. Luffy had no words to respond. Why are these high-ranking officials so naive? Just forget what I said earlier. Shaking his head, Luffy gave up on explaining to them. Come to think of it, it might be even more troublesome to involve the five elders. After all, Vivi's ancestor, a queen named Lily, had a history of conflict with the true master of the world government. Since you all want to try, with this in mind, Luffy took out a din mushi from his pocket and dialed a number. After a moment, Grandpa, it's me, Luffy. The din mushi imitated the expression of the person on the other end of the call, looking completely shocked. Then he laughed and said, "Haha, you miss Grandpa after just 2 or 3 days? Grandpa, tell me Sengoku's contact number. I have something to discuss with him." Luffy didn't waste any words and went straight to the point. The expressions of the people gradually became subtle. Why does this scene feel so strange? A pirate asking for the contact information of a vice admiral at Marine headquarters and saying that he has something to discuss with the fleet admiral. Ha ha ha. It's amusing no matter how many times I see it. Zoro couldn't help but laugh. Garp scratched his head on the other end of the din mushi. Luffy wants to find Sengoku. What a mess. You stupid grandson. What nonsense are you talking about? How could a pirate like you get the contact number of the fleet admiral? The din mushi sprayed Luffy with saliva. Listen, I don't know what you're up to, but don't do anything out of line. Got it. I'm just trying to do a good deed. Luffy took a step back with a disgusted look on his face. So what's the number? There was a moment of silence on the other end before a grunt came through. You brat, you better not be thinking of something weird. Don't let me catch you next time. Then, he recited a string of numbers and hung up. Such a tsundere old man. Luffy smiled and immediately dialed Sengoku's contact number. Vivi and Ikarim were dumbfounded. The higher-ups in the Marines. This is too high, reaching the level of fleet admiral. No wonder he's Vice Admiral Garp's grandson. Thinking this, the din mushi connected again, and a deep voice came from the other end. Who is this? It's Luffy. Good afternoon, Fleet Admiral. Luffy greeted. No, it's evening over there, right? Good evening, Yansho. Sengoku. Naval Headquarters, Fleet Admiral's office. Sengoku was dumbfounded. Luffy? A little brat who became a pirate actually called him? No, more importantly, how does this kid have his number? Garp, UBD, how dare you leak something like this? What's the matter? Sengoku's forehead formed a cross. Princess of Alabasta is looking for you. Luffy handed the din mushi to Vivi, saying, Go ahead and talk, but I advise you not to expect anything. Thank you very much, Lord Luffy. Alabasta will never forget your kindness. Vivi happily took the din mushi, and Igaram also looked hopeful. Admiral Sengoku, I am Nefertari Vivi. My father is Nefertari Cobra, the king of Alabasta. She switched to princess mode and began her self-introduction. On the other side, Sengoku couldn't help but frown. Alabasta, it is one of the world's most advanced civilizations, with a population in the tens of millions and a long history. Princess Vivi, what's the matter? Well, Vivi's small hand holding the den mushy trembled slightly as she reported Crocodile's evil deeds to the top brass of the Marines. After listening, Sengoku's frown deepened. I know about this matter. I will arrange for people to investigate Alabasta. You can explain the situation in detail to them later. Now, please give the den mushy to that kid. Vivi was stunned for a moment, unable to help but be a little dazed. Luffy took the den mushy and said, "What can I do for you, Admiral? You've caused a lot of trouble in East Blue, and you've given me a lot of headaches." "You're welcome, Admiral." Luffy smiled and said, "We're all family. If you want to give me an advanced pirate medal, I wouldn't mind." "Who said we're family? Don't get too familiar with me." Sengoku's mouth twitched, and he coldly snorted. "There better not be a next time. If there's a similar situation, report it directly to your grandfather." It was just a matter of a few words, but he had to go and kill 2 Marine colonels without authorization. This made the Marines very passive. Sengoku, who was getting more and more annoyed as he thought about it, didn't bother to waste any more words and hung up directly. Luffy couldn't help but mutter to himself. If he reported it, he would have to go to the Marine Court. He bet those 2 wouldn't die. As for Mr. 2, he could let it go. He had to kill that rat. Otherwise, he would be letting Nami down. Disappointed, Luffy looked up at the stunned Vivi and said, "Did you think that by making a phone call, a Marine Admiral would come? They will definitely send people to investigate first and gather solid evidence. Will an Admiral come afterwards?" Vivi's eyes were hopeful. Luffy shook his head. "Afterwards, the Marines will explain the situation to the world government, and then it will be up to the government to decide whether to arrest Crocodile. Will they arrest him?" Luffy didn't know. He wasn't one of the 5 elders, so he couldn't guess what those 5 old men were thinking. Even if they want to arrest Crocodile, a Marine Admiral won't come. The most likely scenario is another Shichibukai will come to deal with it. Luffy suddenly thought of something. What if he mentioned the Pluton thing? The world government would definitely be very anxious, and the Marine Admiral might take action. Crocodile would be finished. But then, Alabasta would be targeted. At that time, they could come up with a reason to protect Alabasta, and the government would send the spy agency CPO to secretly obtain Pluton. No, that's not right. A smarter approach would be to not solve the Crocodile problem right away, and even use it to their advantage until the very end, when they would step forward and claim victory, taking the fruit and seizing Pluton. How sinister. It's definitely something the 5 elders would do. Naval Headquarters. After cutting off communication, Sengoku immediately called for Tsuru. Crocodile is subverting the government in Alabasta and trying to steal the country's power. Vice Admiral Crane sat on the sofa and couldn't help shaking his head when he heard the words. Doflamingo did something similar back then, and he succeeded. Sengoku, what do you think we should do? He was hailed as a hero by the people in Alabasta. Sengoku's face turned serious. First, we need sufficient evidence before I can present the seriousness of the situation to the 5 elders. Pausing for a moment, he asked, "Who is currently near Alabasta?" Crane pondered for a moment. "Hina of the Black Cage, Cactus Island, Whiskey Peak. Is all we can do just wait?" Vivi sighed. After a while, she finally accepted this outcome. Seeing her sad expression, Nami gently patted her head. "What are you saying? By the time Marines make a move, it'll be too late. Don't forget, your identity has been exposed, and I've also been targeted." "Nami, I am sorry." Vivi held her head, feeling complicated. Although the scale may be different, my hometown has also experienced similar things. Nami hugged Vivi with enthusiasm. "Don't worry, Vivi. Before, Luffy and the others helped me, and this time, we will help you too. They've only been together for a day or two, and their relationship is already so good." Luffy muttered to himself. "Thank you, Nami." Vivi was deeply moved. "Of course, once we deal with Crocodile, the reward will be 1 billion. It's the Nami I know, no doubt about it." Luffy smiled. "Let's hear everyone's opinions for now." "Luffy, your decision is the will of all of us." Zoro grinned. "If we defeat a Shichibukai, we'll definitely become stronger. Please rest assured, Miss Vivi. Your knight, Sanji, will protect your safety." I agree, of course." as brave warriors of the sea. What is a mere shichibukai? Luffy, leave it to you. Usopp nervously uttered embarrassing words. Ah, you're really full of energy. Suddenly, a pleasant and charming female voice sounded. The voice carried a sense of playfulness and joy. Everyone's gaze turned towards the cafeteria window. There, a tall woman sat leisurely, crossing her legs, resting her elbow on her knee, supported her chin with one hand. Her exquisite eyes curved like a crescent moon, and the corners of her mouth were filled with a charming smile. She wore a purple denim hat, a purple crop jacket that revealed her belly button, a purple pencil skirt, and a pair of purple knee-high boots. Luffy looked at her and remembered another woman and a famous line. A secret makes a woman woman. The woman in front of him gave off that kind of feeling, a mysterious and elegant female image. Miss All Sunday. Vivi trembled all over and gritted her teeth as she uttered the opponent's code name. Nami was surprised. Who is her partner this time? It must be Crocodile, Zoro guessed, his hand already gripping the hilt of his sword. Everyone felt a sense of impending danger. Usopp took out his slingshot. Bartolomeo gestured to activate his ability. Johnny and Yasaku stood up one after another. Even Sanji, who usually had a crush on women, had a slightly serious expression. Don't be so nervous. I'm not here to kill you. The woman smiled slightly, her eyes shifting, her smile undiminished. Then why are you here? Answer me, Miss All Sunday. Vivi's voice was high-pitched, full of hostility. I found some helpers, Miss Wednesday. I'm glad. The woman's right hand, supporting her chin, lightly swayed, tapping her cheek. The mysterious woman's smile grew even more pronounced. After all, I deliberately let you track me so that you could find out the true identity of the boss, thanks to Wanji. For the monthly ticket, thanks to CWK for the donation, and by the way, I'm asking for flowers. 055, a woman's reserve? Devil's Son, Robin joins. After all, it was intentional on my part to let you follow me, so that you could find out the true identity of the boss. Listening to the words of the mysterious woman, Nami couldn't help but feel puzzled and turned to look at Vivi. What's going on? What she said is true, but don't be deceived by her. Afterward, inform the boss that his identity has been exposed by this woman. Vivi gritted her teeth. What? Nami was confused and didn't understand. Not only her, but Vivi also couldn't guess what this woman wanted to do. Just like the first impression she gave, she was mysterious and elegant. You are the one who defeated Mr. Five and Miss Valentine. The mysterious woman's eyes wandered. Her gaze fell on Nami, and then swept across the people present, finally stopping on Luffy. You are the Straw Hat crew, and you're the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates who has gained fame in the weakest sea, East Blue Monkey D. Luffy. Good afternoon. Luffy chuckled lightly. Suddenly, it seemed as if a flower was dancing in the air above their heads. The mysterious woman at the window waved her hand, and the straw hat on Luffy's head flew over and landed on her fingertip. You are such a polite child. Good afternoon, Captain Straw Hat. It's quite impressive to have a bounty of 71 million in the weakest sea, East Blue. She extended a finger and twirled the straw hat at her hand, then put it back on her own head. He was always the one teasing others, but today he was being teased by someone else. This was unbearable. What do you want to do to Luffy-sama? You stinky woman. Zoro's eyes sharpened as he drew his sword. You, stinky woman, how dare you insult Luffy-sama? Bartolomeo, the #1 subordinate, couldn't bear it either. Is this Straw Hat special? Why are you so nervous? It's really rude to call me a stinky woman. Once again, flower petals appeared and danced in the air. In the next moment, everyone's weapons fell from their hands. Usopp's slingshot, Zoro's swords, and even Bartolomeo's head were all hit, leaving them dumbfounded. Luffy's mouth curled up slightly, a smile that was not quite a smile. That straw hat belonged to the Pirate King, Roger, and later to the 4 emperors, red-haired Shanks, and now it's mine. You still have time to apologize, Nico Robin. As her real name was revealed in one breath, Robin's delicate figure stiffened slightly. But compared to her own name, the other 2 names were even more terrifying. Pirate King Roger? For Emperor Shanks? Could this inconspicuous straw hat have Such an important legacy? Nico Robin? Vivi was stunned. I seem to have heard this name somewhere. 20 years ago, on the Scholar Island of O'Hara, which was wiped out by the Marine with a buster call. She was one of the survivors of the incident, a devil fruit user with a bounty of 79 million at the age of only 8. Luffy smiled and looked at Robin, revealing her background in detail. Teasing me. Let's see if you can handle it. However, everyone's focus was clearly different. His emphasis was on O'Hara. The rest of the Straw Hat crew, including Vivi, were shocked by the bounty of 79 million and the age of 8. Her bounty is higher than Luffy's. How do you know? Robin didn't disappoint with her previous attitude. Her smile disappeared completely, and her expression became calm and terrifying. 20 years ago, when she was still young, she lived in the dark world, experiencing all kinds of betrayals. Gradually, she learned to betray others before being betrayed. That's how she survived. In order to survive, she had to learn to disguise herself. Because she was weak, she created her unique haki of disguise. But at this moment, she slightly let go of a part of her disguise. In the O'Hara incident 20 years ago, Admiral Sengoku, who is now one of the 3 admirals along with Akiji and Akainu, launched the buster call. Akiji and Akainu were 2 of the 5 vice admirals who participated in the buster call back then. Luffy spoke expressionlessly. Isn't it strange to know about such a sensational news? Upon hearing the titles Akiji and Akainu again, Robin's expression became somewhat unnatural. The events of that year had become a psychological shadow. Scenes from that time would appear in her nightmares at night. The kind-hearted Dr. Clover, the archaeologist who celebrated her birthday with the Tree of Knowledge, the innocent civilians on the island, and the faces of the people who perished in the artillery fire, their painful expressions, once again appeared in Robin's mind. The sound of a virtual scream echoed in their ears. Nico Robin felt immense pressure, struggling to breathe. She returned the straw hat to Luffy and gasped, saying, "Your next destination is prehistoric island Little Garden. It's not a good place. The unlucky duo has already reported the situation here to the boss, and the assassins will catch up soon." As she spoke, she took out a permanent pointer from her chest and threw it to Nami. This is the closest uninhabited island to Alabasta, a route that even the boss doesn't know about. Before she could finish her sentence, Luffy reached out and stopped Nami, taking the permanent pointer instead. Then, with a bang, it shattered. Nami was stunned. Robin was also stunned, asking, "What are you doing?" Rarely did she kindly point out a safe route for them. The adventurous journey will eventually reach its end. Why rush to take shortcuts? Is that so? Robin hesitated for a moment, finding the ambitious man interesting. She regained a smile and said, "Then, good luck to you, Captain Straw Hat." With that, she was about to leave. Vivi, seeing this, hurriedly shouted, "What are you here for, Miss Sunday? I just saw how serious you all are, sincerely wanting to defeat Crocodile, so I unconsciously helped you this time." This was not an answer, and the others still couldn't understand her actions, taking a hostile stance but doing the work of an ally, deliberately reminding them of the pursuers and even giving them a permanent pointer with a safe route. But not entirely an ally. She was truly a mysterious woman. "I also wish you and your country good luck, Princess Vivi." "Well then, goodbye." Robin smiled and was about to leave the dining room. "You can't leave." Just then, Luffy flashed and instantly squatted on the windowsill. He leaned close to Robin's face, almost within reach, their breaths blowing on each other's faces. Robin's pupils contracted. How fast? When did he come over? What greeted her was a faint smile. "Since you're going to betray Crocodile anyway, why not join my crew?" Luffy made the invitation on the spot. And of course, he would, as long as he wanted to dominate the Grand Line and reach the final island. Nico Robin was an indispensable force. Without her, they wouldn't stand a chance. After all, she was the only person in the world who could decipher ancient texts. No. Wait, there seems to be one more person. But that person is just an alternative, with a much lower priority than Robin. Upon hearing these words, Robin's expression became blank. What is this man talking about? He knows her identity and still invites her. Or rather, he's trying to steal her away. At this moment, she is still a subordinate of Crocodile, or more accurately, a collaborator. What if I refuse? You only have two options, to accept or to agree. There it is, a choice between two options. Nami recalled the first time she met Luffy. Although she didn't know why Luffy invited this woman, she felt that there must be a reason behind it. Because she was the third person to be actively invited. The first was her, the second was Zoro, and the third was this woman. Are you serious? Robin took a deep breath, gazing at Luffy, who was so close, and asked, Do you know what burden I carry? Do you know what burden I carry? Robin's eyes flashed with confusion. What do you mean? You're simply being pursued because you can read the true history and potentially uncover the 800-year-old history that the world government has buried, Luffy explained. And I have consumed a god-level devil fruit that the world government has hidden for 800 years. You pose a threat to the world government as you may uncover their dark history. And I possess the power to bring down the celestial dragons from their pedestal. Although Robin didn't fully understand the significance of the world government's pursuit of the 800-year-old devil fruit, she grasped the general meaning that Luffy was trying to convey. In short, they both shared the same plight. Is this man sympathizing with her? No, not purely. Like Crocodile, he also needs her knowledge to decipher the true history. After realizing this, Robin regained some confidence. I see. But do you know what Crocodile wants? He simply wants Pluton, but I can tell you for certain that Pluton is not in Alabasta. Luffy jumped down from the window and returned to the table. Although Robin wasn't stopped from leaving, she didn't rush to go. She turned around and followed Luffy's gaze, saying with interest, You seem to know everything, Captain Straw Hat. She took a step forward and walked to the opposite side of Luffy, smiling at Sanji. May I sit here for a moment? Sanji's heart raced, unable to resist the charm of a mature older sister. He immediately stood up and made a gentlemanly gesture. Thank you. Robin thanked him and sat down, once again propping up her chin and gazing intently at Luffy. Luffy picked up an empty teacup and handed it to Nami, who promptly poured a cup of sobering tea. Luffy, what is this Pluton you mentioned? She asked curiously. One of the three ancient weapons. Pluton, Luffy casually answered, taking a sip of tea before continuing. Pluton is in Wano country. You can go back and tell Crocodile that. You don't want me to join your crew? Well, you already call me captain, Luffy laughed. You're already my crewmate. Don't be shy. You can boldly call me Luffy from now on. I clearly called him Captain Straw Hat. Robin couldn't help but laugh. She had never encountered someone so familiar before. Seeking applause. Truly interesting. You were under Crocodile's command and did many bad things in Alabasta, but you felt guilty in your heart. When you saw Vivi fighting so hard to save her country, you deliberately exposed Crocodile's identity to her. Is that right? Afterward, when you saw her find allies, which is us, you gave her a permanent pose and wanted to help her again. You have already betrayed him and even prepared yourself to be killed by Crocodile. Upon hearing this analysis, Vivi and the others were stunned. So you're actually a good person? Usopp exclaimed in surprise. Robin was not happy. The feeling of having her inner thoughts exposed made her very uneasy. She didn't want to be a good person. Good people couldn't survive in the dark world. I hate it when you say that. Even if my joining will make you a target of the world government, even if I have carried the darkness for 20 years, you still want to invite me? Are you willing to be enemies with the world government? Robin's expression turned serious. I don't care, Luffy smiled slightly. No one is born to be alone. In this vast sea, there will always be someone willing to accept you. You don't have to be so pessimistic. Just like what Saul said, Robin's expression became distant, her thoughts returning to a day 20 years ago when flames soared into the sky. The cries of her savior echoed deep in her mind. Even if you're alone now, one day you will definitely meet companions. The sea is boundless, and there will always be someone to protect you. Being born in this world means never being alone forever. Snapping back to reality, Robin revealed a charming smile. She grabbed Luffy's hand and pulled out a pen from somewhere, writing a series of numbers in the palm of her hand. After finishing, she got up and left. As she reached the door, She turned back and made a phone gesture. I'll consider it, Captain. I'll convey your words to Crocodile. So, see you in Alabasta. Her tone was light and cheerful, even throwing a flirtatious look. Luffy. Intentional, definitely intentional. Nami glared at her, wondering what this woman was up to. What do you mean consider? Stupid woman. What attitude do you have towards Luffy-sama? Bartolomeo couldn't stand it. You should kneel down and request to join, and then Luffy-sama, in his great compassion, will agree. Upon hearing this, Luffy couldn't help but laugh. She was prepared to die. How could she possibly kneel down and request? Shaking his head, he noted down the din mushy number in his palm. Robin's attitude just now meant that she had already agreed, seeing through the surface to the essence. If she didn't agree, she wouldn't have given her contact information. Could it be a woman's reserve? A woman's pride? Get ready. Once the log pose is fully charged, we'll set sail for the next island. Several hours later, around 7 o'clock in the evening, the fully rested Straw Hat crew returned to the ship, ready to set sail. Vivi had a permanent pointer pointing directly to Alabasta, but she handed it to Igaram. For safety reasons, the captain of the Royal Guards chose to split the group and set off early as a decoy. Vivi finally agreed to his request. Luffy didn't care about this at all. He didn't want to head straight to Alabasta. After all, the islands along the way offered adventure rewards. Besides, that country was already in ruins. A few more days wouldn't make a difference. Unlike the original story, Robin didn't go to bomb Igaram this time, so Vivi and the other members of the Straw Hat crew didn't have such animosity toward her. In fact, Robin had really helped Vivi a lot. Once everyone was gathered, a duck appeared on the Mariejois. It was Vivi's mount, and it came along as well. When Luffy saw this thing, he couldn't help but marvel at the high intelligence of animals in this world, almost on par with humans. This time, it stayed on the Mariejois as well. Very well. Everyone is here. Raise the sails, set sail. Okay. On the other side, in the Drum Kingdom, if a pirate named Luffy lands here later, remember to tell him that I'll be waiting for him in Alabasta for 10 days. Ace, wearing a brown windbreaker in the icy snow, said to a few men. Pirate Luffy? Oh, what's your name? I'm Ace. If you say it like that, he'll understand. Well then, goodbye. Ace made a cool gesture and turned to leave. At this moment, the owner of the restaurant rushed out, shouting, Catch that guy. This be D8 without paying. If it's money you want, ask Luffy. Goodbye. Ace looked cool for only 3 seconds before quickly running away, disappearing into the snowy night. Thanks to the votes from Youth Sailing, and please give me flowers and subscriptions, Chuan. 056 a kill for. Set foot on prehistoric island 2 days later. Lobetown Marine Base. The power that injured you is called hockey. In the courtyard of the base, Garp sat casually on a chair, eating sunbae in his hand, with crumbs all over his mouth. Upon hearing this, Tashigi, who was beside him, pushed her glasses and said softly, So, your grandson, Straw Hat Luffy, was able to catch Vice Admiral Smoker's true form using hockey? Even if his body turns into smoke, he can still be hit. That's really unfair. It's the Logia ability users who are unfair, little Tashigi. As long as they eat a fruit like that, they're almost invincible against enemies without Busashoka Haki, Garp said with a smirk. But relying too much on abilities is not good. Smoker, didn't your teacher Zephyr teach you that? You don't even know hockey. He looked towards the center of the courtyard. Smoker covered his eyes and said in a deep voice, Begin. In front of him, a Marine soldier held a wooden stick, looking embarrassed and unsure whether to strike or not. After learning about the power of hockey, Smoker wanted to learn it immediately. This was training in observation hockey. Blindfolded, he had to dodge unknown attacks. According to Garp, when he could completely dodge and sense the aura of the person swinging the stick, he would have mastered the basics. Of course, it was only the basics. I told you to begin, didn't you hear? Smoker urged sternly when the attack didn't come. Yes. The soldier answered with a stiff face and prepared to swing the stick. At this moment, many Marine soldiers walked in and came to Garp. Lin, how is the situation being handled? Garp saw his subordinates, the commanding officer who had been sent to Shell's town to handle affairs. Mr. Garp, Everything has been arranged properly. Colonel Lin reported. After Shellstown, a new colonel will be sent to guard it. All personnel from the 863rd Branch who were involved in accepting bribes from pirates have been taken down. Currently, the warship is ready to return. Please give your orders. Then let's go back. Garp stood up, leading the people to leave. But just as he took a few steps, he suddenly stopped. Little Tashiji, come with us to headquarters. Smoker, your subordinate has been taken away by the heavens. Tashiji was stunned for a moment, but quickly replied, Yes, Vice Admiral Garp. She didn't know why Garp wanted to take her away, but she wasn't really stupid and had some idea about the secret of that straw hat Luffy, that silver-white form. Regarding this, Smoker didn't object, nor did he have the position to object. Tashiji would go to headquarters for further training, which was a good thing. Continue with the training of observation hockey. Bang, bang, bang. In just a few minutes, Smoker was covered in bruises from the sticks. He gritted his teeth and took off the blindfold. Completely useless. Vice Admiral Smoker, the soldier said with an awkward smile. Help me submit an application to headquarters. I want to enter the Grand Line. Smoker took a deep breath and said coldly, In a place like the East Blue, there's no decent opponent. Straw Hat Luffy. I will repay him for that punch sooner or later. Yes, sir. Grand Line, a certain vacation island. Next to an outdoor pool were men and women in swimsuits. On a beach chair, a tall and thin man held a cup of tea, leisurely savoring it. Such a relaxing life. Only I, as a high-ranking agent, can enjoy life like this in a place like this. Those low-level members with code names below 5 are now busy making money for the organization. Poor guys. Listening to this arrogant remark, a little girl, standing beside the man, licked her lollipop expressionlessly. Mr. 3, sir. Don't call me by my code name in public, Miss Golden Week. The little girl looked up and stared at the man's hairstyle. A number 3. If you don't want to be exposed, don't keep this kind of hair. Clearly, he is very proud of his status. She silently criticized in her heart, but still showed no expression on the surface. Oh, you've been quiet since yesterday. It's a rare day off. Are there any interesting news in the newspaper that you've been staring at? Mr. 3 took a sip of tea and spoke with the confidence of a winner in life. It's not the newspaper, it's the boss's task instructions. I see it's the boss. Why didn't you say so earlier? Puffed. Mr. 3 sprayed the tea out, coughed, and snatched the paper from the little girl's hand, quickly scanning it with his eyes. Mr. 5 got taken out? It's not surprising at all that this idiot who only knows how to rely on his abilities would end up like this. Mocking, he pointed to his own head. As a professional criminal, you have to use your brain. It's really impossible to work well with these bugs. Being taken out by a woman, what a pathetic waste. If I had to be taken out, why couldn't it be Mr.? Then I could get promoted without doing anything. Mr. 3 muttered in his heart, got up, collected the task instructions, and took a final sip of tea. There's work to be done, Miss Golden Week. Of course, it has to be Earl Grey for the tea. The Mary on the deck. Does anyone need my special drinks? Sanji walked out of the cabin with a tray of drinks. Me, quack, quack. Usopp, who was chasing after Karoo, raised his hand immediately, and the duck also responded. Sanji handed out the drinks to them, then looked at Luffy sitting on the sheep's head figurehead. Luffy, do you want one? Thanks, Sanji. Take some to Nami and the others too. Luffy nodded and extended his arm to grab a cup of drink from the tray. Upon hearing that it could go on the Sunny, Sanji became excited and was about to run over. Unfortunately, Bartolomeo stopped him. Sanji, the Sunny is Luffy-sama's harem ship. Men are not allowed to step on it. Leave this to me, the little brother. Why? Aren't you a man too? Sanji transformed into a shark's mouth. I'm Luffy-sama's loyal little brother. I'm different from you. A perverted kappa. Who are you calling a perverted kappa? Ah, the newcomer is getting more and more arrogant. You big-nosed freak. Who are you calling a big-nosed freak? Take this flying kick. The two of them immediately started fighting. Incredibly, during the fight, the tray in Sanji's hand remained steady as a rock. Luffy sighed and rubbed his forehead. He just wanted to separate the male and female crew members, but to call a harem ship, he really dared to say it. This was done to protect the privacy of the female crew members. Absolutely no lewd intentions. As the captain, he was such an upright person. The world misunderstood him too deeply. Ignoring the two clowns, Luffy opened the system and counted his gains from the past 2 days. Invite crew member Nico Robin, a qualified ability user and archaeologist. Reward: 500 venture coins, the same reward as Nami. You have sailed in the Sea of Paradise for 2 days. Reward: 20 daily rewards multiplied by 10. So comfortable adventure coins. 3,515. Unknowingly, he had saved up so much. Luffy thought with emotion and decided to spend some of it. Open the store today. Close after 3 seconds. Very good. Still didn't get the hockey fruit today. This won't do. Luffy doesn't believe his luck is so bad. Would you like to spend 10 adventure coins to refresh the store? Would you like to spend 20 adventure coins to refresh the store? Each time you refresh, the price doubles. After refreshing 4 times, I finally saw the desired items, and they were in bulk 2 at a time. Hockey fruit, box 5 in 1 gift box, priced at 2,000 adventure coins. 6 style fruit, box 6 in 1 gift box, priced at 1,000 adventure coins. Because the reward for sailing in the amusement park have increased tenfold, Luffy now sees prices in the 4 digits and doesn't feel much, even thinking it's a good deal. Small change, buy it. A box of hockey fruit, eat it on the spot. Observation hockey, IV1 LV2 armament hockey, IV2 IV4 conquerors hockey, V2 IV4. With just 1 level difference in armament and conquerors, I can master a new skill. Luffy nodded in satisfaction. It's just a matter of waiting a few days. He'll eventually eat them all. Wait, can he really eat them all? The system didn't say that IV5 is the highest level. After thinking for a moment, he spent another 1,000 to buy the 6-style gift box. Adventure coins. 3515, 365. Who should I give a new 6 fruits to? Sanji? Usopp? Joseph? Zoro? Johnny? Chopper? Nokajiri? Or Robin? Why not give 1 to each person? Nami has already eaten all 6. And at the same time, Luffy also understands that eating the system's fruits will not provide feedback for crew member development rewards. No bugs to exploit. What a pity. As for Kaya and Vivi, they're not members of the Straw Hat crew, at least not now. He can't give things to people outside the crew. Just as he was thinking, Nami's voice came from the Sunny. Luffy, everyone, we can already see the island. As soon as they heard about a new island, everyone became excited and gathered at the bow of the ship. Oh, it's an island. We can see it. Usopp shouted excitedly. Quack, 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 quack. Why are you so excited, you duck? Zoro stopped his training, covered in sweat, and walked out of the cabin to look at the distant island. Luffy, I sense the presence of fierce beasts. There seems to be something on the island, he said seriously. Has your observation haki awakened? Luffy turned around in surprise. Sanji and Bartolomeo, who were fighting, also suddenly stopped and instantly formed a united front. No way. Absolutely not. The first person to comprehend haki should be me. No, no, no. Only I, who is deeply trusted by Luffy-sama, should be the first to comprehend. Even if it's Captain Zoro, I can't give in. What are these 2 idiots talking about? Zoro's eye twitched fiercely. Luffy glanced at the system, confirming that he didn't miss any prompts. If Zoro comprehends it, he should receive a large reward. You should be close to awakening. Don't forget this feeling. But I thought you would awaken armament haki first. I didn't expect it to be observation haki. Considering Zoro's natural beast-like fighting intuition, it's not too surprising. Soon, the 2 ships approached Prehistoric Island. There is a river channel extending deep into the island, with lush forests on both sides, and the roar of wild beasts can be heard. Is this little garden? It's such a big island. I wonder who named it, Nami complained. What a dense forest. I hope it's not an uninhabited island, she continued. Listen, the roar of wild beasts. I have contracted a disease that prevents me from going ashore. Usopp exclaimed, clutching his heart in fear. Now that we're here, why not explore? Luffy teased. No, I'll stay on the ship. Right, Zoro? You'll be staying on the ship to train anyway. Nami said. Zoro, with 1 foot on the ship's edge, preparing to jump, heard Usopp's words and responded, I'll go and hunt some wild beasts to get some exercise. Usopp, you want to come too? Usopp shook his head vigorously. Sanji chimed in. By the way, we don't have much food left on the ship. Bring some back. Okay, it's definitely a huge creature that you won't be able to hunt, Sanji said. What did you say, Curly Eyebrow? Sanji immediately became indignant and jumped off the ship, rolling up his sleeves. Perfect. Let's have a competition. Let's see who can bring back more meat. You know how much Luffy consumes in a day, right? We need to bring back several thousand kilograms at least. Oh, did I mishear? Isn't it several tons? You're such a useless, perverted chef. Sanji retorted. You're really provoking me. If I win, you have to step down from the captain's position. Sanji challenged. No, you can't. Luffy protested. As the two argued, they walked deeper into the jungle. Nico Robin laughed and said, I really can't tell if these two have a good relationship or if their personalities just clash. Luffy interjected. Several thousand kilograms and several tons are not the same thing. Your math teacher would cry, hey. I declare free time. Nami, are you going ashore? Luffy asked. You guys go ahead. I'll stay here and guard the ship. Nami shook her head. Nico Robin also chose to stay behind, saying, I'll keep Nami company. Anyway, do as you please. I'm going for a walk. Luffy jumped off the ship. Luffy-sama, I'll come with you. Bartolomeo followed suit. Seeing this, Vivi suddenly said, Can I come too? Huh, Vivi, are you going ashore? Nami was surprised. It's all jungle, and there are wild beast roars everywhere. There's not much to see. I've been staying on a ship for too long, and I feel a bit restless. I want to go for a walk. Vivi pursed her lips. And if I follow Mr. Luffy, I'll be safe. Maybe we'll see prehistoric creatures like dinosaurs. Nami, don't you want to see? Luffy smiled. Nami thought for a moment and shook her head. Luffy didn't insist and immediately headed towards the depths of the forest with Vivi and Bartolomeo. Prehistoric Island. Vivi admired the scenery along the way and explained, traveling between islands in the Grand Line is very inconvenient, which has led to a peculiar phenomenon. Some islands are inhabited by humans, with developed countries, towns, and technology thriving and prosperous. Some islands are rarely visited by humans, seemingly frozen in time, with little change for thousands of years. Moreover, due to the problem of magnetic disturbances, the climate on each island is completely different, Vivi continued. It can be simply classified into 4 types: spring, summer, autumn, and winter islands. Each type of island has its own 4 seasons, so there are a total of 16 different seasons. This island should be a spring island, and it's currently spring and summer, Vivi said. Upon hearing this, Luffy chuckled and said, You're becoming more cheerful, Princess Vivi. Just call me Vivi. Thank you for all the trouble with Alabasta, Mr. Luffy. You've been a great help, Vivi said. Even without you, I would have gone to meet Crocodile and helped you solve your so-called trouble. Luffy replied. Are you trying to comfort me? Mr. Luffy, you're really a good person, Vivi smiled. Bartolomeo, who was following behind them, fell into deep thought. Am I a third wheel? Thanks to 666 for the monthly ticket, and also requesting flowers plus requesting. 057 Uncle Luffy. Is my tea to your liking, mistress? The docking point of the Sunny. Watching Luffy and the others walk away, Nami leaned on the ship's rail and turned to look at her sister, smiling. Are you really not going up with them? Somebody has to stay behind. There's still a few prisoners on the ship. Nami shook her head. Mr. 9, Mr. 5, Miss Valentine, they're all locked up in Mary's hold. Nami gave her a disdainful look, walked over, and flicked her sister's forehead. You fool. He's your man. You should keep a closer eye on him. Huh? Nami looked confused. Men are like hunters who are never satisfied. They won't stop hunting. Nami said this in a tone of someone who knows, but in reality, she had no experience in love. But in front of her sister, she had to pretend to be authoritative. Nami laughed. Luffy is not like that. He might not be, but with other people clinging to him, he really doesn't have a sense of urgency, Nami. Vivi was speechless about this. However, in this world, there is no system of one man and one woman. She was just afraid that her sister would be abandoned. That kind of blow would be really hard to take. Nami smiled gently. Your worries are unnecessary. And besides, I promised Luffy that as long as he doesn't drive me away, I will always be his navigator. From the first time we met, Vivi sighed. You foolish romantic, if you get hurt, don't come crying to your big sister. She ran over and ruffled Nami's hair, and the two sisters started playfully fighting. In the depths of the jungle, there are rare creatures everywhere. If this place became a zoo, it would definitely be popular. Luffy walked all the way, seeing various ancient creatures. Pterosaurs flying in the sky, long-necked herbivorous dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus rex, saber-toothed tigers, Triceratops. Not only were there many of these fierce, ancient creatures, they also formed groups from time to time. He understood why there was no human kingdom on this island. It simply wasn't suitable for human survival. The environment was too harsh. Even if you ignored the attacks from wild beasts, the complex jungle environment alone would breed various poisonous insects and bacteria. Not to mention, there were several active volcanoes on the island, ready to erupt at any time. After all, there were two giants on this island, and they would signal each other with volcanic eruptions, competing every day. They had been fighting for 100 years. As he was pondering, boom, a loud noise came. Volcanic eruption. Vivi was startled and instinctively moved closer to Luffy. It's just a volcanic eruption. No need to panic. Even if this island suddenly sinks, I can take you safely away. Luffy said softly, using his observation haki to sense everything around him, then changed direction. It's this way. Yes, Dr. Luffy. Vivi quickly followed his footsteps, carefully avoiding some thorny bushes. 10 meters away from the two, Bartolomeo silently followed, like a loyal bodyguard, not making a sound unless absolutely necessary. To the point that Vivi forgot there was a third person present. Mr. Luffy, what's wrong? Since just now, you've been walking in a very purposeful direction. Maybe it's just my imagination. Your feeling is right. And also, you don't have to be so polite. Luffy nodded casually and said, there are people on this island. Probably high-level agents from Baroque works. Upon setting foot on the island, Luffy had already used his observation haki to sense a part of the area. His observation haki had reached level 2. With a broader range of perception than before, he could almost cover a quarter of the island. To avoid trouble, let's deal with them first. Besides, they happen to have something I need. Vivi looked surprised. So it was a detailed plan, pretending to take a walk, but with a purpose. He really is a reliable captain. He gives people a very reassuring feeling, as if listening to him would solve any problem. Vivi smiled and said, no wonder everyone is willing to follow you. As a leader, you need a clear mind. Being a captain is also tiring. Your decision affects the fate of many people. Luffy shook his head and suddenly smiled. Let me test you. What will be the first thing you do when we arrive in Alabasta? The first thing, the most important thing? Vivi subconsciously thought about this question. To be honest, she hadn't had time to consider these things before. Find a marine contact and give him the evidence of Crocodile's crimes. 60 points. Vivi pouted cutely, somewhat dissatisfied, and asked, and what about you, Luffy-san? As for me, of course, I will find Crocodile as soon as possible and beat him up, making him realize how weak he really is. That doesn't count. I don't have the same powerful strength as you. That's why you get 60 points. Why? Before solving Alabasta's troubles, my strength is your strength. You need to learn to borrow the power, position, and authority of others to solve problems you can't solve on your own. Luffy laughed. You would rather go through the trouble of finding the Marines, which may not even yield results, than find a way to directly use the power around you. You're too kind of person to be a good ruler, the future queen. Vivi was moved and embarrassed by these words. Foul! It doesn't count. Luffy-san didn't give a specific explanation in the question. Then I win. What do you mean I win? No, let's change the question. Gradually forgetting their original purpose, Vivi's mood became much more relaxed as they walked and talked. Behind them, Bartolomeo watched in astonishment. Luffy-sama really has a way. I'm truly unnecessary. He fell behind a little more. After walking for about half an hour, a white house appeared in their field of vision. Found it. Luffy didn't tease Princess Vivi anymore and looked at the house not far away. How can there be such a house in the depths of this jungle? It's too suspicious. Vivi lowered her voice and said, I know it's Mr. 3, Baroque Works high-level agent, Paramecio wax fruit user, with a bounty of 24 million berries. It's a house made by Mr. 3's ability. He is, Vivi wanted to explain. Luffy raised his hand to stop her and took the lead towards the wax house. Faint voices could be heard from inside the house. Inside the house, Mr. 3, with the number 3 on his head, was happily looking at the wanted poster in his hand. I really have to thank those two idiots, Mr. 5. Otherwise, I wouldn't have received this mission or come to this island. It's truly the favor of fate. The little girl beside him ate a sunbae expressionlessly, taking small bites, and said, Do you have a plan? Judging by the time, Princess Vivi, who the boss called for, should be here soon. Let's not worry about them for now. The focus is on these two. Mr. 3 slammed the wanted posters on the table, revealing a cunning smile. Prehistoric island Little Garden, where two giants reside, the rumored leaders of the giant warrior pirates. Blue Ogre Dory, Red Ogre Broggy. The giant warrior pirates are a rare pirate crew with 2 captains. Each of these giants has a bounty of 100 million berries on their heads, totaling 200 million. Are you going to take action against them, Mr. 3? The little girl's voice was calm. Of course, why not take the money that comes to us? That's 200 million. Mr. 3 replied, Just think about how long it would take for those low-ranking members who earn money at Whiskey Peak to earn 200 million. If we can successfully capture these 2 giants and also complete the mission requested by the boss. In this way, you will have a chance for a promotion. The problem is that these 2 giants are quite strong. It's probably not a match to confront them head-on. I need to come up with a plan to make them fight each other and also eliminate Princess Vivi and the help she brought. Mr. 3 picked up his tea, took a sip, and laughed wildly. My motto is to achieve big things with little money. Professional criminals rely on their brains, unlike fools who only know how to use force. Before he could finish his triumphant words, suddenly, the door of the wax house was pushed open and a man and a woman appeared at the entrance. Mr. 3 immediately sprayed the red tea from his mouth. Cough, cough, cough. Vivi, Princess Vivi. He stared at the woman outside the door with wide eyes, then lowered his head to look at the photo on the table. It's exactly the same. Miss Wednesday. Sorry, your conspiracy was too loud. I could hear it from outside the door, Luffy said with a half-smile. You are. Mr. 3's expression instantly became serious. I remember now, you're the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. Monkey D. Luffy. So, you're the help Princess Vivi brought, the Straw Hat crew. You flatter me. I didn't expect to become a recognizable person, too. A bounty of 71 million. Doesn't look that impressive. He looked Luffy up and down, squinting his eyes. But you were the prey that came to me, saving me some effort. As he spoke, white wax formed in his palm and quickly fell to the ground, spreading towards Luffy like a living creature. This action was carried out quietly, talking and launching a surprise attack at the same time. In an instant, Luffy and Vivi's feet were bound by the white wax liquid, freezing them to the ground. Ha ha ha, what idiots. They actually walked in so openly. If I were you, I would have launched a sneak attack and not given the opponent a chance to resist. Mr. 3 mocked, feeling proud of his successful move. Vivi's face changed slightly. Mr. Luffy, unable to move, after the wax solidified, it completely blocked her movements, preventing her from even using moonwalk. Oh, don't waste your energy struggling. It's meaningless. Once my wax solidifies, its hardness can rival steel. Ha ha ha. Mr. 3 stood up from the wax chair and laughed. But his laughter froze on his face the next second. Luffy's legs turned pitch black, and with a kick, the solidified wax shattered. No, it's impossible. His eyes bulged out, screaming in disbelief. That was the hardness of iron. What were this person's feet made of? Without time to think further, Mr. 3 immediately swung his right hand towards Luffy, and endless white wax gushed out from his palm. The wax took the shape of a spear in the air, and suddenly stabbed towards Luffy. Busashoka Haki, hardening. With a single swing of his arm, Luffy shattered the spear of white wax as if swatting away a buzzing fly. In the next moment, he threw a punch towards Mr. 3 attacked fiercely. Candle wall, candle wall, candle wall. In panic and fear, Mr. 3 clapped his hands and instantly created 3 wax walls in front of him. However, boom, a punch pierced through the 3 walls, which were as strong as steel, and brutally hit him in the face. Bang! With one punch, Mr. 3 was hit so hard that he vomited blood and lost 7 teeth. His whole body spun 3.5 times in midair, and his head slammed into the wall behind him. Mr. 3. The little girl showed a change in expression for the first time and was frightened. She looked at Luffy with fear. Luffy showed a kind smile and said, "Don't worry, I won't hit little girls." Miss Goldenweek was just about to breathe a sigh of relief. But then, the man's knife hand fell on top of her head. With a bang, the little girl immediately lost consciousness and fell down with her eyes rolled back. "You were fooled. You're so easily trusting. Are you all members of a criminal organization?" Luffy shook his head. Vivi finally came to her senses and thought to herself, "How cunning. Luffy, can you help me?" "I can't move," Vivi asked. Luffy casually struck and shattered the wax on Vivi's feet. "Wake this guy up and ask him something," Luffy said. "Yes, Luffy-sama." Only at this moment did Bartolomeo, who had been waiting outside the door, rush in like a gust of wind. 10 minutes later, Luffy, Vivi, and Bartolomeo sat on white wax chairs. In front of them, Mr. 3 was smiling and brewing a pot of Earl Grey tea. When he smiled, he revealed 2 rows of teeth, missing 7 of them. Luffy picked up the red tea, took a sip, and showed a surprised expression. Seeing this, Mr. 3 scratched the back of his head and awkwardly said, "Does the tea I brewed suit your taste, Luffy-sama?" "Not bad. You have good skills," Luffy praised. "But what were you planning just now? Were you trying to deal with the Straw Hat crew and Vivi?" "No way. You must have misunderstood." Mr. 3 knelt on the ground with a thud, crying without tears. "It was all Mr. O who forced me to do it." Vivi. She held the red tea, unsure she should drink it. "Are all the high-ranking members of the organization like this?" "Ah." Bartolomeo tilted his mouth, stood up with a rub, and slammed the table, angrily spraying the other person's face. "You doubt that Luffy-sama misheard? Luffy-sama can't be wrong. If there's a mistake, it's your fault. I'm sorry, please spare me." Mr. 3 had no backbone and was like a kite, drifting wherever the wind blew. At this moment, he was prostrating on the ground, begging for mercy. Luffy looked at Bartolomeo dissatisfiedly and said, "Watch your tone, Barto. We are righteous pirates, not involved in mafia-style intimidation." "Yes, Luffy-sama." Bartolomeo immediately put on a friendly expression, helped Mr. 3 up, and gently said, "You scoundrel, confess honestly, or else I'll feed you to the fish in the sea. You have the ability, right? No need to tie stones to you." Mr. 3 trembled all over. Compared to this guy, he, a member of a criminal organization, seemed as innocent as a good person. He quickly let his bruised and swollen face reveal an ugly smile. "Luffy-sama, please feel free to give me any orders." 058 Vivi becomes a little girl. Crocodile. Straw Hat Luffy, you win. Mr. 3 fully realized the gap. The man who could shatter his 3-layered candle wall with a single punch, he had no intention of escaping. Indeed, this pirate who reached a bounty of 71 million on his first wanted poster was not someone an ordinary person could contend with. He was finished. As someone who failed the mission, he would definitely be eliminated by the organization. The beautiful vision of promotion and salary increase could only be a dream. Now, all he hoped for was to save his own life. "Do you have a record pointer here?" Luffy elegantly drank his grape count, secretly praising the other person in his heart, giving him the title of Red Tea Hermit. Didn't you hear Luffy-sama's question?" Seeing Mr. 3 in a daze, Bartolomeo grabbed his collar. As for the record pointer, Mr. 3 looked towards the bamboo basket on the table. Vivi immediately put down her red tea and lifted the lid of the bamboo basket. Sure enough, she found a record pointer inside. Luffy-san. She handed the pointer to Luffy. Is this what you're looking for? No. Luffy shook his head. On the wooden frame of the pointer, the place name Little Garden was marked. Seeing him shake his head, Mr. Three's heart jumped in fear, and he quickly said, "This is the permanent pointer for Little Garden, and there is another record pointer that stores the magnetic force of a nearby resort island." Pausing for a moment, he revealed a smile even uglier than crying. "Master Luffy, what you want?" "I want the pointer to Drum Island, the Drum Kingdom." Luffy frowned slightly. Drum Island is the next island after this one. The Drum Kingdom on the island is a world-class medical country. Mr. Three suddenly realized and then looked embarrassed. His heart sank. He was done for. Would he be killed? Vivi was startled, remembering Miss Kaya on the ship. That delicate young lady is not in good health. She only occasionally leaves her room during the day, and I have only seen her a few times. Most of the time, she silently reads medical books in the sunny library. "Mr. Luffy, if you want to go to Drum Island, all you have to do is store enough magnetism here, and the compass will point to the next island," she said. Upon hearing this, Luffy glanced at her helplessly. The quietness in the air is what I fear the most. Vivi blushed and wondered, "What's wrong? Did I say something wrong?" "It takes a year to store enough magnetism on this island," she said. Mr. Three chuckled awkwardly and suddenly remembered something. It was as if he had found a lifeline and quickly said, "There are 2 giants on the island, Lord Luffy. They must have the pointers you need. Rumor has it that these 2 giants have been living on this island for a very long time." The name Little Garden comes from an explorer who came here and discovered the existence of the giants. He named the island and wrote a widely circulated travelogue. For humans, this island is not small. In fact, it can be considered quite large. But for giants, it's just right, just like Little Garden. Hearing this, Vivi was shocked. "Giants? Are we going to snatch the pointers from the giants?" She secretly looked at Luffy. Luffy fell in a deep thought. If I remember correctly, the giants don't have the Drum Island's record pointer. They only have a permanent pointer that points to their homeland, Elbaf. He fell silent. To stay on this island for a year in order to go to Drum Island? That is certainly not a feasible option. Time is running out. With this in mind, Luffy calmly drank his tea. "It seems like I need to find the helpful Shichibukai crocodile." Suddenly, squelch, the sound of a din mushy came from the basket on the table. Luffy decisively picked up the receiver. A deep and slightly hoarse male voice came through. "Mr. Three, your mission report is taking too long." "It's Mr. Zero, the behind-the-scenes boss of Baroque Works." Mr. Three trembled all over. "Crocodile?" Luffy laughed. He was about to contact him proactively, but he didn't expect the other party to be so anxious. When he heard his name being mentioned, Crocodile's expression changed on the other end of the phone. "Who are you?" He remained silent for a long time. "You're not Mr. Three." He rarely showed himself. All the orders of Baroque Works had always been conveyed through Nico Robin. The members below couldn't possibly know his true identity. If it weren't for the fact that the plan was nearing its end, he wouldn't have personally contacted him. "I am Monkey D. Luffy, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates." Luffy crossed his legs and spoke slowly. "I heard that you've been up to no good in Alabasta these years, trying to seize the power of this country. Let me give you some advice. You should consult with Doflamingo. He only took one night to seize the political power of Dressrosa and obtain the position of king." Alabasta. In a dark room, Crocodile sat on a soft and comfortable boss chair, his face terrifyingly gloomy. One of the 7 warlords of the sea, Don Quixote Doflamingo. The country he sought was just a small country with a population of a few 100,000. What is Alabasta? It is a large country with a population of tens of millions, and it has a standing army of 600,000. Is that so? The helper the princess found is you. Crocodile narrowed his eyes, his gaze filled with killing intent. The woman who defeated Mr. Five, she's also your subordinate, right? And you killed that useless Mr. Three. There is no need to guess how the other party knew his identity and purpose. It must have been revealed by Princess Vivi. Do you want to kill us? Luffy laughed. I'll give you a chance. I'm currently in Little Garden. You can come in person. I'll be waiting for you. Beside him, Vivi was so scared that she pinched his arm. Unfortunately, He was made of rubber, so it didn't hurt at all. Mr. 3 trembled all over. The boss of Baroque Works, it turns out he's a Shichibukai. This is really bad. Now we're really done for. If we don't die at the hands of Crocodile, we'll die at the hands of the Straw Hat crew. What a lunatic, daring to provoke the Shichibukai. On the other side, Crocodile crushed the wine glass. To be precise, the glass suddenly turned into quicksand and scattered from his fingertips. A boring provocation. My grandfather is Garp. Upon hearing this, Crocodile's heart skipped a beat. The marine hero, Monkey D. Garp. This kid just called himself Monkey D. Luffy, and his name is also on the wanted poster. Even the Marines' demand is capture alive. This is trouble. Crocodile's face looked very ugly. Sure enough, the next sentence from the other party confirmed his thoughts. I have evidence of your crimes, Crocodile. You don't want the Marines to know, do you? What do you mean? Crocodile gritted his teeth. I'll give you a chance. As long as you deliver a permanent pointer from Drum Kingdom to Little Garden before nightfall. I won't temporarily reveal your crimes to the Marines. Luffy said with a smile. After all, we're all comrades of the sea, good brothers in the same camp. Pausing for a moment, he added, you have a duo called the Unlucky Duo under you. Let them come flying over. Hurry up, time is running out. After saying that, he hung up with a snap. Done, Mr. Luffy. Just as the communication was cut off, Vivi couldn't help but grab Luffy's arm and shake him vigorously. Don't shake, you're going to make me smell bad. What exactly do you want to do? You actually voluntarily exposed your whereabouts to Crocodile. I know you're in a hurry, but don't be impatient for now. Helplessly rolling his eyes, Luffy calmly drank his tea. Damn brat. Crocodile's face was incredibly gloomy. The busy tone coming from the receiver left him at a loss, feeling extremely annoyed. Mr. 3 is really useless. Standing up and walking to the huge glass tank. Crocodile stared at the banana crocodile in the water. It was an extremely large crocodile. In the 3 years of drought in the entire country of Alabasta, he had raised 7 or 8 of them in the tank. The grandson of a marine hero. If this identity is true, it's troublesome. The identity is probably true. As a Shichibukai, he could easily verify this kind of news. It would only take a few minutes. Has Marine already found out about Alabasta? Crocodile's brain quickly considered countermeasures. Judging from the other party's request, this group of people is indeed on Little Garden, and Drum Island is the next island. At the same time, he also knew that it would take 1 year for magnetic storage to be completed there, so seeking a permanent pointer was also a reasonable motive. He could rush over now and cruelly kill this group of people, and he could arrive in the fastest 7 or 8 days. A round trip would only take half a month, but the plan is at a critical stage, and he doesn't have half a month. Moreover, if Marine already knows and comes to Alabasta during his absence, then even if he kills this group of people, it would be meaningless. Of course, he is not afraid of Marine alone. Marine can't do anything to him for the time being. What he fears is the exposure of Pluton, which would attract the hostility of the world government, and his title as a Shichibukai would be stripped away immediately. Standing quietly in front of the water tank for a long 10 minutes. You did a great job, you little brat, perfectly hitting my weak spot. Crocodile's eyelids slightly drooped, casting a shadow over half of his face. He turned around and returned to his boss's desk, picking up a din mushy and dialing a number. Nico Robin. The call connected, and a mature woman's voice came from the other side. Can you stop calling me that? Mr. O, where are you now? On my way back to Alabasta. Upon hearing this, Crocodile frowned. Immediately informed Mr. 1 and the others to go to Drum Kingdom and eliminate Vivi and the Straw Hat crew. Huh. Robin on the other end immediately sensed that something was wrong. Then, Crocodile continued giving instructions. Notify the Unlucky Duo to prepare a permanent pointer for Drum Kingdom and send it to Little Garden. Little Garden? I see. As a woman who had been in the dark world for 20 years, Robin could guess a few things from these words and phrases. Calculating the time, Captain Luffy should be arriving at Little Garden soon. Notify Mr. 2 to gather in the rain area. Hurry back. The plan needs to be advanced. Finally, Crocodile gave one last order and hung up the call. Sending Robin to Drum Kingdom was impossible. He needed her to decipher the poneglyph. Therefore, he could only urge her to come back quickly. After hearing these words, Robin revealed a charming smile. How interesting. What has Captain Luffy done to make Crocodile so anxious? It's the first time I've seen him like this. With that in mind, she quickly followed the orders and contacted the others. In the room, Crocodile put down the Den Den Mushi and reached out to pick up the topmost bounty poster on the thick stack on the table. Monkey D. Luffy only allowed to capture a live bounty. 71 million. We are now racing against time. If Mr. One can successfully deal with the Straw Hat crew in Drum Kingdom, everything will proceed according to the original plan. If it fails, then let's advance the plan. There is a 5-day journey between Drum Kingdom and Alabasta. 5 days is enough. Monkey, Luffy. Crocodile stared at the smiling face in the photo and coldly snorted. Oof. You win this round with your move. As soon as he finished speaking, the bounty poster turned into flowing sand and dissipated in the wind. Wax House. Luffy savored the finest tea, Earl Grey. So, will there be assassins targeting us in Drum Kingdom? Vivi murmured softly. Maybe Crocodile will come in person too, although the possibility is very small. The plan is more important to him. To be precise, it's Pluton. Luffy put down his teacup, his expression full of confidence. So, no need to rush. Just give him a little intensity and see how he reacts. In the game of Go, it's called testing the opponent's skill. Just a little test, and it doesn't cost anything. You might even get a free permanent pointer. Will they really send it? Vivi asked, somewhat unclear about the situation. Luffy replied with certainty. Who is Crocodile? This guy spent several years planning to seize a country and the legendary ancient weapon. How could someone like this act impulsively? He must consider all aspects and make the most suitable judgment for the current situation. Garp's grandson wants to report his evil deeds? Regardless of whether there is a report or not, we must stabilize the situation first and find a way to eliminate him. At the same time, considering the possibility of failure, let's execute the plan as soon as possible. Even if the world government finds out after obtaining Pluton, what can they do? In the end, they will have to negotiate with him and acknowledge his position. After explaining all this to Vivi, of course, I didn't tell her about the prisoner. Vivi felt a touch of admiration in her heart. Humans are creatures that admire strength, and women are no exception. It's not admiration for physical strength, but for intelligence. The feeling of being in control of everything is very admirable to her. You're amazing, Mr. Luffy. It's just that I know about him, but he doesn't know about my information. Luffy modestly shook his head. What intelligence? It's just information. Anyone could do it, and even do it better. Of course, he also knows one of Crocodile's secrets. Although he doesn't know the specifics, as long as he reveals it, it will make Crocodile uneasy. Let's go see those two giants. They're probably having a fierce fight. Luffy got up and walked towards the outside of the house, instructing Bartolomeo behind him. Barto, you stay here and wait for the unlucky duo to bring the eternal pointer seed. Yes, Lord Luffy. Bartolomeo also had a face full of admiration, no fanaticism. He truly deserves to be the man who will become the Pirate King. He can easily handle even the Shichibukai. Wait for me, Mr. Luffy. Vivi immediately followed his footsteps, showing signs of becoming a little fangirl. 059 Luffy. It's okay, I'm God. Prehistoric island. There's a circular lake in the center. A lost green algae head is dragging a triceratops 10 times its size, and for the 3rd time, it emerges from the jungle and arrives at the lake. What's going on with this island? There are lakes everywhere. This is already the 3rd one, and they all look similar. How amazing. Zoro's face darkens. This island is simply a maze. Thud. Suddenly, a loud noise comes from not far away. The sound of metal collision sweeps over in the form of a shockwave. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh like a hurricane passing through. The towering trees around the lake bend under the pressure of the airwaves, and the ripples on the lake surface roll up from one side, like waves crashing toward the other side. Unfortunately, Zoro is by the shore and gets splashed in the face by the waves, becoming completely drenched. Water droplets slide off his cheeks, and Zoro's mood is as turbulent as the lake. What on earth is that sound? It has been going on since the volcano erupted earlier. He looks up in the direction of the commotion. However, the trees here are too tall and obstruct the view. Leaving the triceratops that almost killed him behind, Zoro walks along the edge of the lake. After passing through a patch of jungle, a creature appears in his field of vision, with a shape identical to that of a human, except that it is at least 10 times taller than him. Gia, giant! Zoro's expression is stunned. Both giants have a body size of over 20 meters. They each hold a shield in their left hand and a giant axe in their right hand, while the Japanese person wields a long sword. Thud! The two weapons clash fiercely, producing a sound that can almost shatter one's eardrums. Due to their battle, the forest within 100 meters is destroyed, and a bald circular area appears in the dense jungle. It's like their arena. The Grand Line really has everything. I can actually see the giant race from fairy tales. Zoro looked up, paying attention to both sides of the battle. It can only be said that the two sides were evenly matched, neither able to do anything to the other. Just as he was thinking, the person wielding the giant axe blocked the enemy's sword swing, and while being forced back, he stepped back with his right foot. Zoro's expression stiffened, quickly moving to the side to avoid it. Crack! Several tall trees were crushed underfoot. It seemed that the giant with the axe noticed something small at his feet, and he paused for a moment, glancing over. The other giant with the long sword also noticed the unexpected visitor. Human, the two giants simultaneously stopped fighting, looking at each other. The giant with the axe burst into laughter, crackling 73,466 rounds. Give, 73,466 draw. Both of them sat down, panting, and looked at Zoro. Zoro instinctively gripped the hilt of his sword. It's been a while since we've seen a new guest, human. I smell the scent of alcohol. The giant with the axe greeted with a smile. If it were an ordinary person, they would have obediently brought out the alcohol by now. But Zoro was clearly not an ordinary person. He took off the gourd hanging from his waist and drank a sip in front of the other person. Sorry, I've already finished it. The giant with the axe. The giant with the long sword. Ha ha ha. At this moment, a hearty laughter came from not far away. Zoro and the giants all looked over. They saw Luffy slowly walking over with Vivi, as if taking a leisurely stroll. Luffy was laughing uncontrollably, saying, "You truly are something, Zoro." Luffy. Zoro raised an eyebrow, not knowing what he was laughing about. Hey, giant from Elbaf, we have alcohol on our ship, but right now, we only have black tea. Luffy shook his head. Asking Zoro for alcohol was like asking for death. It would be strange if he gave it to him. Vivi, who was standing beside them, looked at the giant and nervously lifted the teapot in her hand. Earlier at Wax's house, Luffy deliberately asked her to bring the teapot, and she didn't understand at first, but now she knew. Do you know Elbaf? The longsword giant showed a surprised look. The Goa Kingdom, known as the world's strongest country. Anyone who sails the seas has heard of it. The longsword giant laughed heartily with a very generous tone. Here, I like you, human. I am Dori, a warrior from Elbaf. The other person also laughed and said, Kabababa, I am Broggy, from the same hometown. I am Luffy, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. This is the first mate, Zoro, and she is Vivi, the princess of Alabasta. There are several giant kingdoms, and the most famous one is naturally the Elbaf Kingdom. Some giants have gentle personalities, but Elbaf is not like that. They are synonymous with roughness and ferocity. Of course, the two giants in front of them are not ferocious, but more enthusiastic and generous. And they have a simple-minded nature. For the sake of a little girl's words, the former captains of the giant warrior pirates fought for 100 years. So you're pirates. The last time I saw pirates challenging the Grand Line was a long time ago. Broggy reminisced and warmly said, Kabababa, let me take you to my place and entertain the guests who have come from afar. Wait, we should go to my place. No, my place is delicious grilled meat. Seeing the two giants about to fight over this, Luffy immediately said with a smile. Let me treat you to a cup of black tea first. Vivi. Yes. Vivi immediately poured 2 cups of tea and held them up to the two men. Dory and Broggy both took them curiously. However, what was a cup of tea for humans was held between 2 fingers for giants, so it was hard to notice without careful observation. After drinking it, the doctor's eyes lit up. The taste is different from alcohol. It's really good, just too little. Another cup. Vivi quickly refilled their cups, but in the end, the teapot didn't last long. The giants were still not satisfied, and, to thank Luffy, extended another invitation. But neither of them would back down. Let's just have a barbecue here, they decided in the end. Zoro contributed the triceratops he hunted. The group gathered around the bonfire, enjoying the barbecue and chatting. Mr. Dory, Mr. Broggy, why did you fight? Vivi asked curiously. Both of them were stunned for a moment, then laughed and answered in unison. We forgot. Broggy grinned. We've been fighting for 100 years. The reason doesn't matter anymore. Now, we just want to determine the winner and take the record pointer back to Elbaf. What about the loser? Vivi widened her eyes. Who knows, but I won't lose. For the glory of Elbaf, I won't lose either. No, it's me who is favored by the gods of Elbaf, Broggy. The one who wins in the end will definitely be me. Their heads collided, their gazes crossed, as if sparks were flying in the air. Vivi couldn't understand it all. Since there is a permanent pointer, why don't the two of them go back together? At this moment, Luffy stood up. Wait a minute, you mentioned the gods of Elbaf. In his words, he instantly transformed into Gear Second. Is that so? The two arguing individuals fell silent. Vivi, who had never seen the silver-white figure before, covered her mouth in surprise. Zoro had seen it a few times before, so he wasn't surprised, but what did it have to do with the god of Elbaf? Dory and Broggy exchanged glances, their eyes scrutinizing Luffy's sun god form, their brows furrowing. It looks somewhat similar. It's a bit like the statue I saw, but not exactly the same. What do you think, Dory? It does look somewhat similar. Your name is Luffy? What's the meaning behind your appearance? A statue? Is there a statue of the god of Elbaf in Elbaf? Luffy returned to his normal form and laughed, saying, It seems I'm not your god of Elbaf. This appearance of mine is called the Sun God. Do you know the legend of Nika? Nika? The liberation warrior, Nika? Isn't that just a legend? So it really exists. Both of them were shocked. Am I not standing right in front of you alive? Of course, I'm a second generation. Luffy rolled his eyes. Ah, I see. So you're a god, a truly remarkable figure. I apologize for my rudeness. Ha ha ha. As the sun god, I bless you, two honorable warriors of Elbaf, and I hope you can return to your homeland soon. Here, 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 here. Ah, I see. All three of them burst into laughter. Zoro also laughed along, impressed by Luffy's ability to easily get along with two giants. Vivi had a bewildered expression, not understanding what was so funny about the men's laughter, so she silently helped with the barbecue. By the way, I heard that Elbaf has some powerful techniques. Like the Elbaf spear? Or the Conqueror's Haki? Luffy asked. The Elbaf spear. That is indeed a powerful technique. After getting familiar with each other, Dory, who usually speaks his mind, scratched his head awkwardly this time and said, I only mastered Hikoku. This is a unique technique of the giant race, swinging weapons to create powerful shockwaves with extremely strong power. You can tell a thing or two from the name of the technique. One of the 4 emperors of the New World, Big Mom, has mastered another technique called Haki. 2 years later, the 4 emperors Kaido and Big Mom teamed up to use Haki, and Zoro attempted to stop them, but was instantly heavily injured. As someone who wants to dominate the treacherous sea of the Grand Line, Luffy felt it necessary to learn a trick or two. Unfortunately, these two don't know it. Thinking of this, he immediately said, I want to experience the power of your Elbaf spear. Upon hearing this, Dory and Broggy were both stunned. Young man, you will die. That's right. The power of the Elbaf spear is no joke. Of course, Luffy knew this. In the waters near this prehistoric island, there's a gigantic goldfish called Shukyoku Island Monster. Its excrement is called Barren Island. The giants used to think it was an island and actually landed on it, only to find out that it was the excrement of the Shokioku island monster. But even such a creature was instantly defeated by the combined Hikoku of Dori and Bragi. From this, you can see the power of the technique. It's okay, I am a god. Luffy smiled slightly. Please, give it your all. Being asked again, Dori and Bragi were both astonished. After a moment, the two burst into laughter. Kabababa, is that so? Yes, you're a god. Here, since you said that, we can't let down the glory of Elbaf. All right, we'll show you. The two immediately picked up their weapons and stood up together. Luffy took off his straw hat and put on Vivi's head. Could you please take care of this for me? Wait a moment, Mr. Luffy. Isn't it too dangerous? Vivi said nervously. Luffy waved his hand and walked away without looking back. Zoro, pay close attention. It should be very helpful for you. Zoro focused and silently followed. Vivi was going crazy. What's wrong with these men? She could only follow their footsteps. Not long after, in order to make himself an easier target, Luffy jumped to the top of a tree that was 20 meters tall. Come on. Upon hearing this, Dori and Bragi nodded and raised their weapons. Their power quickly gathered. The giant axe began to emit a crimson light. It was Red Ogre Dori. The long sword was wrapped in a blue-green light. It was Blue Ogre Bragi. The two didn't say much, and indeed followed Luffy's request, using all their strength. As the charging began, the momentum of the two giants became urgent. Haki. Luffy stood at the top of the tree crown, not surprised by this. It's indeed a technique that activates Haki. In the next moment, he erupted with armament Haki, forming an invisible armor on his body. Hikoku. Suddenly, with a loud shout from the two, their weapons instantly released a powerful shockwave. All their power converged into one strike. In an instant, the dense forest in front was uprooted, and the ground seemed to be lifted open. The terrifying impact, like a raging bull, ruthlessly destroyed everything in its path. In the distance, Zoro stared wide-eyed, shocked by the scene. The shockwave was like an indestructible spear, wiping out everything in front, rushing out of the island, and splitting the ocean. However, within this, the area where Luffy stood, as well as the area behind him, seemed to be protected by an invisible wall. Safe and sound, Luffy endured it all. Dori and Bragi's combined attack. Elbaf's spear couldn't penetrate Luffy's Haki. He blocked it. Zoro whispered in shock, as if he had suddenly realized something. Boom! Like a passing typhoon, the shockwave raged for more than 10 seconds. After everything gradually calmed down, Vivi was finally able to look up at the battlefield. In the dense forest, a row of bald areas appeared, extending all the way to Luffy's feet, and then splitting in two, spreading further away. She sighed with relief, clutching her chest. The weapons in Dori and Bragi's hands shattered and fell. But they had no time to care about that and burst into laughter, truly worthy of a god, being able to withstand our combined Hakoka head-on. It's the first time we've seen it. Clack, 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 clack. Amazing god. Here, little guy. Do you want to learn this move? But it's not so easy to master by just enduring and experiencing it with your body. Let me teach you. Dori looked at Luffy with admiration. Luffy jumped down from the treetops and said with a smile, Teaching one is teaching. Can I teach too? It's fine. You can teach as many as you want. You've earned our respect. Clack, 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 clack. Next, Luffy and Zoro both accepted the giant's teachings. Hakoku, as a technique of the Elbaf spear, was obviously difficult to train in. Even in the warrior village of Elbaf, not everyone could master it. No, to be precise, giants who could master Hakoku were already extremely rare. They learned from daytime until evening. Later, Bartolomeo found Luffy with the eternal pose of Drum Kingdom, and the two of them finished their training. It seems like you're about to leave, Dori grinned. We've taught you the essence of the technique, but it's not easy to truly use it. Thanks, you too. I hope we can meet again in the new world. Luffy bid farewell to the giants with a smile and returned with his crew. They had obtained the log pose, so there was no need to stay any longer. Before leaving, he had someone leave the alcohol on the ship as a gift for the two giants. Second update, there should be another chapter tonight. I'll try to do 3 updates a day, 15,000 words in total. By the way, I'm asking for flowers, votes, and full subscriptions. 064 Emperor's Fun landed in the Drum Kingdom Nightfalls. The fully equipped Sunny and Mary, one after another, raised their sails and slowly sailed down the river towards the sea. On the deck of the Mary, it's unbelievable, coming back empty-handed. Green algae head, it seems that I, Sanji, am the winner of the hunting competition. My prey was just eaten. Anyway, it's definitely bigger than yours. It's truly unbelievable. Still making excuses. Are you even fit to be the captain of the second team? Give it to me. Perfect. I'll use the newly learned Elbaf spear to stab you to death right now. They argued as usual. Inside the warehouse, the newly arrived prisoner, Mr. 3, and his partner, Miss Golden Week, along with the old prisoners Mr. 5, Miss Valentine, and Mr. 9, looked at each other in silence. If it weren't for all 5 of them being securely tied up, there was also a green-haired man with a pig nose guarding them at the warehouse entrance. People who didn't know would think this was a meeting of the Baroque Works executives. Yo, Mr. 5. Mr. 3 awkwardly greeted. Isn't this Mr. 3? You're here. Mr. 5 replied with a fake smile. Who will be next? Miss Valentine even joked. When you see others in the same predicament as yourself, your mood suddenly improves. It's not that we're weak, it's all because the enemy is too cunning. Who will be next? Mr. 3's mouth twitched violently. Could it be that even Mr. 0, the Shichibukai crocodile who has always hidden his identity, will be captured? Next is Mr. 1. He remembered what happened earlier in the wax house and suddenly blended into the environment, starting to look forward to it. Mr. 1? That's really something to look forward to. At that time, what kind of expression should we use to welcome him? All 3 of them had the ability to break free, but when the man with the bull nose at the door glared at them, they were too scared to make a move. When you can't resist, it's better to find amusement in others. Mr. 9 and Miss Golden Week looked at each other and felt speechless about it. The mouth of the river by the shore. Dory and Broggy bid farewell here, watching the 2 ships gradually disappear into the moonlight, both with a smile on their faces. Will it come out? That Food Island monster. Forgot to remind them. It will definitely come out, but we don't need to worry. With Luffy, there's no problem. He always finds a way. The 2 laughed heartily, each holding a bucket of wine and drinking freely. Kabababa, Nika the sun god. Give. The liberation warriors have appeared in this era. Indeed, the legends passed down in Elbaf are true. Dory. Yes, it's not the time to continue fighting now. The era is about to undergo a change, Broggy. Let the outcome be decided later. Babababa. It's time to return to our homeland. Give. The 2 raised their buckets of wine and wished together. May the fortunes of war be with us, sun god. The sunny go. Luffy, what are you doing standing at the bow of the ship? Dinner is ready. It's your favorite. Nami shouted at Luffy's back. Luffy stood at the figurehead of the sunny go, hands in his pockets, waiting silently. It's coming. The sea ahead suddenly became turbulent, and a massive black shadow gradually emerged. It was a giant goldfish, opening its huge mouth and swallowing seawater. As the sunny go moved with the flow of the sea, it gradually approached the creature, seemingly about to be swallowed in one gulp. Boom! Luffy's gaze sharpened, and in an instant, his conqueror's haki was unleashed, the power of his indomitable will impacting the creature's mind. The overwhelming pressure destroyed the monster's will in an instant. Fear appeared in its eyes, and its open mouth instinctively closed. Finally, as if avoiding a natural enemy, it disappeared from the surface of the sea in the blink of an eye. What was that just now? Nami exclaimed, her mouth wide open in surprise. Luffy leaped off the figurehead of the ship and walked over, giving it a kiss before laughing. Just a mischievous little goldfish, it's gone now. Let's go eat. Nami blushed and touched her mouth, shyly following him into the cabin. After dinner, Kaya returned to her room. Her health was not good, and she needed to get enough sleep. Luffy asked Nami to call the crew of the Merry Go. At this time, in the Sunny Go activity room, the Straw Hat Pirates gathered together. Female members, Nami, Nefertari Vivi male members, Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Johnny, Yisaku, Bartolomeo. In addition to them, there was also Vivi, who was not a crew member. Because he rarely had the chance to come on this ship, Sanji was very excited. He even wanted to light a cigarette to suppress his restless heart. "No smoking here, Sanji," Nami said with a smile. "I'm sorry, Miss Nami." Sanji quickly extinguished the cigarette and asked, "Luffy, why did you gather us here?" Upon hearing this, Luffy took out a box of 6-style devil fruits and placed it on the table. "This is," Vivi exclaimed. She remembered this thing very well. It was because she had stolen and eaten 2 devil fruits that she had become acquainted with Luffy and the others, and now they were all companions. "These are 6-style devil fruits," Luffy said. Luffy opened the box, and the 6 fruits were neatly arranged in 2 rows. Everyone was shocked. Usopp widened his eyes and said, "Luffy, how many of these do you have?" "I've said it before, you might not believe it, but creating a fruit like this requires me to sacrifice 10 years of my life," Luffy said. Nami gave him a disdainful look. He was still bringing up the past when he used to tease her. "So, are you going to distribute it to everyone?" She brought the topic back. Luffy nodded and said seriously, "After eating this kind of fruit, you will randomly gain mastery over one of the 6 styles, and it will also strengthen your physique." Usopp, who was most interested, looked around. Nami has already mastered all 6 styles, so she doesn't count, but there are 8 of us. Luffy. Upon hearing this, Vivi quickly waved her hand. I ate 2 of them before without permission. Mr. Luffy, please exclude me. I wasn't planning on giving it to you in the first place. Of course, I can't say that. It would make others feel awkward." Luffy sat casually, supporting his cheek with one hand, and said, "Nami, you explain the specific 6 styles to them first. Whether they want to eat it or not is up to them. Of course, it's not a devil fruit, so there won't be any side effects of turning into a duck." Nami.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.